Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to Audiobook Dynasty. If you want early access and even more parts for free, make sure to join me on Patreon. Chapter 21, Trip to Syrup Village. Chapter size, 1443 words. Third person POV. Somewhere in the East Blue Sea. After 2 days in the middle of the ocean, a marine ship was anchored in the waters, while Luffy used the power of his devil fruit to slow down the ship, almost coming to a stop. Next to the marine ship, there was a smaller and peculiar boat. What is this? Yamato couldn't help but ask in amazement. This is a speedboat. Luffy said proudly. He purchased it using the system, taking an existing model in this world and adding a few modifications. The young man with the straw hat used his money from the shop system to buy and assemble a steam-powered speedboat. What's a speedboat, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi looked curiously at the small, peculiar boat with an engine at the back. This is a small motorized boat that can move faster than most boats in this world. It will be a secondary boat for the crew, mainly used by Lamy as she delivers the heads of the pirates we captured while we were here in the East Blue, Luffy explained proudly. Incredible! Yamato exclaimed with starry eyes. You don't even know what a motor is. Lamy said from the side, thinking that the tall woman with horns was missing a few screws in her head. Luffy had an appreciative look for Lamy at this moment. Although the concept of a motor wasn't new to this world, as they had a sea train in Water 7, for most people, it was strange and unfamiliar. Lamy in the original story had a damn submarine like Law, so it's no surprise that she's the only one who has an idea of what a motor is. Anyway, I'll teach Lamy and Bappo how to operate the speedboat with the fuel now. Please wait for me to finish before we continue our journey, I said, jumping onto the boat with Lamy and Bappo following me. But first of all, where did you get all of this? Did you already have it in your pocket? Lamy asked, curious. It was a recurring question among the crew, but everyone inclined to the idea that Luffy had these things before they met him, and he had simply shrunk them and kept them until the occasion. No, I got these with the money we obtained from Buggy. It's pretty hard to explain right now, so I'll do it another time. Let's focus on the boat's operation for now. Luffy planned to talk about the concept of the shop later, now he had other concerns. While Luffy explained the concept and the manual of the speedboat, on the marine ship, everyone was looking at that strange, small motorized boat. A woman with orange hair was standing beside them. She was dressed as a French maid, nothing too sensual, but she had her own uniform, like Baby 5. She held a mop in her hand, squeezing it tightly, with veins popping on her head. I'm a maid? A maid. Nami was furious with her fate in the midst of all these pirates, as her role was to clean the ship and attend to the captain's requests. First, he doesn't see me as a navigator and brings me into his crew as a maid. Now he's making me wear this uniform and asking me to keep cleaning the ship. Damn you, Luffy, you're lucky you hid all that gold, but I'll find it. I'll take it along with the reward you'll receive from Buggy. Nami was furious at first, but soon had a malicious smile at the prospect of getting all that money from this crew. So, I'll keep cleaning the place until I get that money. She was determined as she resumed her task with a rather happy demeanor, which left everyone who knew her intentions quite concerned as the maid cleaned with a scary smile. After explaining everything, Luffy summoned a raft to be pulled by the speedboat with Buggy's crew tied together on it. With this, I believe you can go. Take my Vivre card and come to us when you're done, Luffy said, taking a paper from his pocket and handing it to Lamy, who accepted it. Okay, see you later, Captain. She smiled. In the beginning, Lamy had some grievances with Luffy, and they still had some differences, but over the days, they were building some kind of relationship between them, despite a few jokes back and forth. Remember, don't use your devil fruit powers too easily. My grandfather is already coming after me, and if the headquarters finds out about the potential of the people around me, they'll try to send more forces here. Not that it would scare me if it happened, but I want to delay it as much as possible while we're in this sea. She nodded in understanding. Then, see you later. Luffy said with a nod, not taking his eyes off the emo-styled woman. After a few seconds, he turned to the bear beside him, who wore his orange jumpsuit, one that Luffy bought in the shop, as it belonged to the canonical Bappo without a pirate symbol. You too, Bappo, take care and keep this emo here out of trouble, Luffy smiled. Who's emo? Lamy yelled. Yes, Captain. Bappo said, saluting with his hand on his forehead, mimicking a military salute. So, I'm off. Luffy jumped onto the marine ship, while Lamy started the coal-powered engines and began to move away from the ship with the raft full of clown-dressed prisoners begging to be set free. Now, let's continue our journey. Our sharpshooter with a long nose is waiting for us. Luffy announced as the ship resumed sailing in the direction they were heading. For the rest of the day, Luffy trained them with his powers, but this didn't include Nami. Luffy wasn't naive to her real intentions here, as was almost everyone else on the crew. He was just toying with the cat burglar. Even though he needed a navigator, seeing her cleaning the ship with a uniform was too much fun. She would grumble when she broke her broom or the dustpan after realizing her own situation in anger. Nami, you've broken another broom. You owe me 50 berries now. Luffy exclaimed, enjoying himself, while Nami had a dead look as she saw herself either further in debt or losing money, no matter how insignificant 50 berries might be. As for not training the cat burglar yet, Luffy wanted to see how she would fare on her journey. He wasn't like the canon Luffy to forgive that betrayal so easily. He wanted to test the waters with Nami before making a decision, even though he would appreciate it if she came to ask for help in dealing with Arlong without stealing from him. The sun is so warm and nice. Shirahoshi commented. Nami, get some orange juice for me, Yamato, and Shirahoshi. A shirtless Luffy in flowery shorts asked, as he and Kaido's daughter in a beautiful white bikini, and a serious woman sat side by side, sunbathing on chairs in the middle of the ship. Each of them wore sunglasses to enjoy the moment. Meanwhile, Shush! OU was on the mast like a lookout or guard dog, and Zoro and Kuina were still training, swinging a piece of wood, which I increased in weight multiple times. Sharky! A disgruntled Megalo barked from the side of the mermaid, who was on another chair. Oh, I forgot, one for Megalo too. Luffy quickly said apologetically. While they enjoyed their time relaxing at sea after their intense training, Nami had to comply with the captain's request. Of course. Nami replied, gritting her teeth. She despised everything about the situation, but it was necessary to get her precious gold. Thanks, maid. Luffy commented with a smile. Thank you, Nami. Thank you, maid-sama. Sharky. Everyone expressed their gratitude. You're welcome. Nami smiled with closed eyes but had visible veins on her forehead as she tried to hide her anger. She began to walk in a stiff and squared manner as her unmasked rage consumed her, heading toward the marine ship's kitchen. She pretends so poorly. How did she manage to steal from all those pirates? Luffy couldn't help but wonder internally as he watched her walk away from the group. Woof! Woof! Everyone heard barking from the mast, and Luffy understood what it meant. It seems Chaochu spotted land. Luffy commented with a sigh. Anyway, it didn't take much more than a day after Lamy separated from the group for the ship to see the village of Syrup in the distance. Third-person POV. Syrup Village, East Blue. With the ship arriving at a deserted beach on the island, Luffy asked Zoro to steer the helm in a straight line and let the sand naturally slow down the ship. As the sand rose with the impact of the marine ship, it came to a halt, and the rest of the crew descended using a ramp placed on the side of the ship. A ship shouldn't come to a beach, as it would get stuck in the sand. But this rule didn't apply to Luffy. He gently touched the ship and as soon as everyone disembarked, the captain used his power on the massive 30-meter-long object. Moa Moa no Mi, mass, reduced by 0.001 times. The ship obediently transformed into a small object in the palm of Luffy's hand, reducing from 3,000 centimeters to 3. What? Darn, I said that too loudly. Luffy, as he held the ship, heard a surprised shout, and his crew's reaction was no different as they all looked up at some rocks on a hill beside the beach. Come out from where you are, Luffy said seriously but had a playful glint in his eyes. You're not Marines? You don't look like Marines. The voice from the other side shouted with an alarmed tone, without revealing its face. No, we're pirates. Luffy calmly said, and before the person on the other side could respond, some of his companions commented with curiosity. Incredible. A talking rock, the surface is so full of possibilities. Shirahoshi exclaimed, fascinated, as she looked at the rocks on the hill. Sharky! Sharky! Wolf! Wolf! Both animals believed Shirahoshi's words. The sea is even stranger outside of Wano, Yamato commented on the side since the rock was beyond the reach of her observation haki. Are you all really believing this? Zoro lost his composure at this, while the other girls, Nami and Kuina, had defeated looks at the naivete of the two other women. Ha ha ha! Luffy laughed, and even he lost his composure at that moment, finding it hilarious. Anyway, I'm going to face these 8 million. As he said these words, wings began to sprout from his back, and he flew toward that hill. What is this? He can fly? He's not human. Run! Luffy heard a collective shout from the kids as he approached. Luffy landed on the rock and, on the other side, saw a young long-nosed man with 3 other children prepared to raise some poor flags. As soon as they saw him, the kids dropped the flags and ran toward the village, leaving the long-nosed man behind, who looked at Luffy as if he was going to die at that moment. Yo! Luffy greeted with a smile. Are you going to kill me? Usopp asked in fear. Of course not. I came to recruit you. Luffy said. Huh? Recruit? Usopp was stunned by this man who had barely arrived and spoke these words as if it were something normal. Yes, I believe you have potential. How about joining my crew? Luffy asked with a smile. Boom. Is this our new crew member? Yamato appeared at the side, startling Usopp even more. Is he strong? Yamato couldn't help but comment, scratching her chin. It's clear that he's strong. I'm a brave warrior of the sea, the strongest with my fleet of 8 million pirates. Usopp gained courage with Yamato's comment and spoke his delusions out loud. Really? Yamato asked, amazed, looking for the other 8 million people under Usopp's command. Luffy just sighed at that. He's lying, Yamato. This island can't fit that many people to begin with, Luffy said calmly. Caught in the lie, Usopp started to sweat. Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi arrived at the scene flying. A woman with a tail who can float. Usopp exclaimed with comical eyes when he saw the princess. He had heard of a mermaid but didn't know the exact description. Shirahoshi, cover your tail with the dress I gave you, so you don't attract too much attention, Luffy said calmly. Yes, Luffy-sama. She obeyed, lowering the dress to cover her tail. Wasn't there more shouting here? Nami asked, inspecting Usopp and the area since she hadn't seen the children shouting and running. By this point, everyone had already surrounded a scared Usopp. Only a boy. Did he get lost? Sharky. Wolf. Who are you? Usopp asked, still cautious about the presence of these strange people and animals who suddenly appeared. We're the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy led the conversation. And what do you want here? We want to sell a ship. I heard there's a shipbuilding company here, so we came to this island, Luffy explained. Yes, there is one, I know the owner, but you're not here to cause trouble, are you? Usopp asked, still cautious. We're pirates, we do what we want. But we're not here to loot towns and villages. That's beneath us, Luffy said seriously. But then, since you're a brave warrior of the sea, why don't you join me and my crew? I need a good sniper, and you look like you might be one of the good ones. Luffy asked again. Of course I am. But why do you want that? Usopp looked at him incredulously since he knew deep down that he was weak, and no one expected much from him. Because you have potential, and I know your father. Luffy said simply. My father, really? You know my father? Usopp couldn't be more shocked. Of course, his captain gave me this hat. How about joining me on my adventures and finding him later? I can make you even stronger than your old man. Luffy proposed. I don't know, in the end, Usopp didn't agree, as it was all too sudden, and he had his life in this village, no matter how much his heart longed for adventures on the vast and unknown sea. Even looking at this unique group he never imagined seeing in front of him, he wanted to say yes deep down, but he was afraid of the unknown and was still attached to this place. However, he didn't reject Luffy's offer either. Luffy saw this and hoped to change his mind as he stayed on this island. Third-person POV. Village Syrup, East Blue. Anyway, why don't you show us where this shipbuilding company is? I want to make some money with the ship we have. Luffy changed the subject, as he expected from Usopp. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Usopp finally stood up from the ground, where he had been since he got scared when Luffy grew wings. Wait a moment. How did you make that ship disappear? Or how do you have wings? Usopp yelled, now recalling all the strange things that had happened. How does she have a tail? How is there a flying shark? He couldn't stop shouting with his scared voice. No one immediately answered. Nami was curious as well, she didn't have the courage to ask too many questions but really wanted an answer to all the strange things this crew could do. About me, I'm a devil fruit user, Luffy said calmly. I thought those were just legends. Nami exclaimed. Did you not find it strange when Buggy split in my lure, maid? Luffy asked incredulously. I was so stunned that I didn't even notice. Nami protested, growling when Luffy called her by her current occupation. Usopp was stunned, trying to imagine a fight with people with strange powers, something that left him internally terrified. As for Shirahoshi, she's a mermaid, so it's normal for her to have a tail. Haha, Luffy laughed and continued. Her companion is Megalo, he's a very special shark. Sharky. And that woman with horns? How can there be so many different people in just one place? Usopp couldn't help but exclaim as well at the giant and peculiar appearance of Yamato. Isn't that normal? We're a pirate crew. Luffy announced with a smile. That's not normal. Usopp, Nami, Kuina, and Zoro shouted at the same time. Ha 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 ha. How funny. Yamato spoke with a smile while laughing at the faces of the four. But anyway, can we go now? Luffy asked, and in the end, Usopp nodded, seeing that this group didn't seem to be evil, just very strange and with personalities he never imagined. Great, let's go, everyone. Luffy said, following Usopp as everyone started to follow him. It didn't take long for them to enter the village, passing through the streets. They soon attracted a lot of attention with their group. Hey, isn't that Usopp? But who are those accompanying him? Some villagers suspected as the group passed through the city streets. What beautiful women! I've never seen such beauty. Yamato and Shirahoshi attracted a lot of attention, both from men and women. Isn't that a Jolly Roger with a straw hat drawn behind the cloak of that tattooed man? Pirates? What? What are pirates doing here, and Usopp is with them? Soon everything turned into a tumult, while Usopp was getting nervous about the gossip. His reputation was already not good among the people in this village, and now they were associating him with pirates. Luffy and the others didn't seem to care much, except for Nami, who didn't like pirates, especially when being called one. Anyway, they passed through the village and headed toward the large mansion near the port, on a hill. As they approached the gate, a butler who looked very much like a human ram was watering the flowers in the garden next to a blonde young lady sunbathing in a chair. Usopp and, who are these? Mary stopped watering his plants as he noticed Usopp coming with a group of very unusual people and some animals following them. Mary? Can you call Kaya? Usopp asked the butler directly. Usopp. Before Mary could respond, Kaya had already left her chair to see her storyteller friend. Hello, Kaya. I brought them here because I had some business with you. They said they wanted to sell a ship, so I guided them, Usopp said. And who are your friends? Open the gate, Mary. Kaya asked, turning her attention back to the strange group, who entered the gate as soon as Mary opened it. A green-haired man with 3 swords at his waist, 4 women, including one with a sword, another dressed as a maid with an unsatisfied face as she walked alongside them, a woman with a smile on her face holding a heavy weapon, almost 3 meters tall with red horns and a yellow base, incredibly beautiful, just like the other woman with pink hair and an innocent face, wearing a dress and walking in a strange way, almost as if she were flying and pretending to walk. There was a furry dog with a flying shark using a bubble of air around his waist, seemingly well out of the water. And finally, there was a tall, tattooed man dressed as a pirate, who smiled at Kaya, as he appeared to be the group's leader. Hello, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy said confidently, earning a surprised look from the 2 in front of him. A captain of a pirate crew. Mary spoke alarmed and a little frightened. And what does a pirate want with me? Kaya asked, now a bit cautious. Simple, I came to sell a ship that I acquired through the spoils of another pirate group. Do you buy ships? Luffy asked calmly. About that. What is happening here? A new voice was heard at the scene, preventing Kaya from giving Luffy an answer. Everyone turned to see a man approaching in a suit, adjusting his glasses. Clawdor! Kaya exclaimed. What filthy pirates are doing in this place? He said with a look of disgust. Luffy didn't pay much attention to it, except for some internal amusement. Zoro had a sharp look, and Shirahoshi looked a bit frightened by these words. ARF! ARF! Chaochu didn't like this at all and barked at the man, showing his teeth. They brought their mutt too, the black-haired butler continued to comment, earning an even more intense growl from the dog. Wait, they just came to sell a ship. Usopp said hurriedly before any misunderstandings occurred. Sell a ship? Have you not read the news? This group attacked a marine base and killed its commander a few days ago. Clawdor said, showing 2 wanted posters, one of Luffy with a fierce look and shirtless next to the headless body of Morgan, and the other of Zoro tied to a post, with Luffy having a bounty of 10 million, and Zoro with 5 million. Is this real? Did you really attack a marine base? Kaya asked in disbelief. It's true, we're pirates after all. Luffy didn't even try to deny it, he really didn't care if he was called a demon, he was doing what he wanted, regardless of others' opinions. Usopp was in conflict now, he had just realized that he brought dangerous pirates to Kaya. Anyway, I'm here for business. If you don't want to do business, we'll leave, Luffy said without laughter now, speaking calmly. How can a lowlife like you do business at this shipbuilding company? Clawdor said with a disgusted tone. Isn't this guy caring about his disguise, is he? Luffy commented internally. Even though Luffy had shown a strength of 10 million, Kuro should still have to use some of his skills here to defeat a low-level pirate crew, and his disguise as a butler would soon be questioned. And you, the usual liar from the village, without finishing what he was saying, Clawdor pointed at Usopp this time. Have you brought dangerous pirates close to the lady? Have you lost your mind? I expected more, even from someone of your kind, he said with disdain. Wait, Clawdor, Usopp, when Kaya was about to defend Usopp, the butler interrupted her. You have to understand, miss, that he has brought danger to you here, this kind of scum always attracts others like him. It's no wonder your father is a bum on the sea. My father is, Usopp shouted angrily this time but couldn't finish. Pirate, Clawdor interrupted again. In other words, a lower-level scum, just like you and your little gang here, he said, adjusting his glasses again. While everyone was stunned by these events, suddenly, laughter brought everyone out of this stupor. They turned their gazes to Luffy. Ha 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 ha. Luffy began to laugh loudly, much to everyone's surprise. What a funny guy! Ha 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 ha! I'm sorry for this, but I can't help it anymore, ha 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 ha! My Luffy! Luffy-sama! Sharky! Wolf! Has he gone mad? Nami said unhappily. She didn't like how the dark-haired butler had treated them, and now hearing Luffy laugh made her even more displeased. What's so funny, pirate scum? You better get out of here and never come back with the rest of your ilk, otherwise, we'll call the Marines, Claudor said seriously, not liking the mockery made by this young man. Ha 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 ha. I just can't help but exclaim, you seem like a clueless man, not even knowing how grand his father is. He may be a pirate, but he's much better than being a butler in a village in the East Blue. Luffy smiled at him with a dangerous glint. Luffy, Usopp couldn't help but mutter as he listened to this. Mary and Kaya were still shocked by everything happening. But anyway, I don't care about your opinion, I'm a pirate, after all. But since you're so bold in insulting me, my crew, and even my future crew member here, Luffy pointed to a stunned and cowering Usopp at his side. Prepare yourself for the consequences. Luffy simply said, a sadistic smile forming on his face, and then he disappeared from the spot. Without time to react, the black-haired butler suddenly felt a sharp, intense pain in his stomach as a powerful punch was delivered, burying itself in that part of his body, causing him to recoil like a ragdoll. Boom! His body flew like a rocket, crashing into one of the mansion's walls. Third-person POV. Village Syrup, East Blue. That. As the only thing they managed to comment on in the face of these sudden and unexpected events, Yamato was the quickest to react and equally surprised, just like the entire Straw Hat crew. Their captain, who had only come here to deliver a pirate ship to get some berries from Buggy's ship, was equally surprised by what followed. A butler who appeared suddenly started to insult them. This was followed by their captain punching the arrogant man without giving him a chance to react. Luffy stepped into the spot where the butler had been and began to walk towards the wreckage caused by his punch and the man's body. Despite the noise of destruction, everyone was still frozen in place by these sudden actions. As he walked towards the destroyed area, an arrogant smile began to spread on Luffy's face. In the wreckage, there was Claudor with torn clothes, broken glasses, disheveled hair, and coughing up blood as he tried to breathe on the ground. He glared at Luffy, filled with hatred, as Luffy approached him. What's wrong? Surprised? You already know my history. Did you think I'd reward you for insulting me and my crew? Luffy asked arrogantly, raising an eyebrow. Wait, don't hurt him. Call the guards. Make him stop. Kaya, coming out of her stunned state, said hurriedly, watching Luffy approach Claudor with terror. Girl, you're too naive. Do you think I'll let this slide after hearing those words? Luffy taunted her, not revealing the man's true identity, as he wanted to play with him first. Especially after the man thought he could be arrogant with him and his people. After ignoring her, before Kaya, Claudor, or almost anyone present could react, except Yamato, Luffy disappeared again. Ah! Without time to react, Claudor received a kick from Luffy, sending him flying a few more meters as he screamed in pain. What's the matter? Is that all you've got? Luffy taunted as he appeared by his side again. With another punch directly to his face, his nose was broken when he hadn't even fallen from the last blow. Boom! His body demolished another part of the mansion. You wretch, you'll pay for, Claudor said in the midst of the wreckage while his face was like a bloody pulp. But before he finished his threat, Luffy appeared before him and grabbed his neck before he could react. Would you like to see this? Luffy smiled sadistically and, with his hand on Kuro's neck, began running and dragging his head along the wall, rubbing his face as he destroyed everything in his path with his head. Everyone watched in horror, even their crew was tense. Shirahoshi and Nami were the most frightened. Everyone watched in horror, even their crew was tense. Shirahoshi and Nami were the most frightened. What's wrong? Is that all you've got? Luffy taunted as he raised a swollen face by the neck. It no longer resembled the butler from moments ago. That face couldn't even speak anymore, it was the complete opposite of what it was moments ago. Let me help you fix this. Luffy said, giving two open-handed slaps to that face. Slap! Slap! The sound of the slaps echoed strongly throughout the area, horrifying all the onlookers. Kuro was unconscious by this point, the slaps had been so strong that he collapsed. How can you say you're helping by giving those slaps? Everyone thought inwardly. What's happening here? At that moment, guards began to appear in the midst of this commotion, but they quickly became alarmed by all the destruction he had caused while holding Claudor by the neck in one hand. Don't worry, I'm done here, Luffy said as he tossed what was left of Kuro, as if he had spat out a terrible mouthful. He passed by a frantic Kaya, who ran towards her butler, and went to his still stunned crew. Go away and never come back here. Never. Luffy could hear Kaya looking at him with hatred, but he paid no attention to it. You heard them, let's go. Luffy said with a small ironic smile, snapping everyone out of their stupor. Usopp, you too, I don't think you're welcome here anymore. Luffy said to the long-nosed one, who looked at Kaya after these words. He saw her taking care of Clawdor but occasionally glancing at Luffy and even at him with anger in her eyes. Swallowing hard, Usopp followed Luffy out of the mansion, feeling a bit guilty for what had happened. No one said anything during their walk. Instead of passing through the village, they took another path. As they reached another deserted beach, Luffy stopped walking, causing the others to stop as well. Luffy stared at the empty sea horizon for a while without saying anything. Nami couldn't stand the silence any longer and broke it with a loud shout. What was all that about? Why did you attack him like that? You nearly killed him. No matter how arrogant he was, you can't hurt someone like that just because of words. Luffy didn't respond to Nami's shouting, nor did he turn to face his crew while still gazing out to sea. That guy! Nami snarled, while the rest of the group remained silent. I think I'm leaving, Usopp suddenly said in the midst of the new silence. He had followed the group because he hadn't had much choice, but now he had many bitter thoughts, especially since it seemed that his friendship with Kaya had come to an end. Wait, Usopp, you shouldn't leave yet, Luffy finally spoke and turned around, revealing a solemn smile. Usopp was surprised by this. I told you I wanted you on my crew, didn't I? Luffy said, his smile leaving everyone here stunned again, not understanding their captain's actions. Of course, from what I've seen so far, you were a coward back there, but I'm giving you a chance to earn it. Luffy said, continuing. In the next few days, you'll train with me and my team. After that, you'll have to defeat a pirate on your own and prove your worth. What are you talking about? I didn't say I was joining your crew. Usopp said, a bit angrily. You may not join it, but you'll definitely want to defeat this pirate, Luffy said, taking a low-cost wanted poster from the shop and opening it in front of all of them. This. Everyone was stunned when they saw Kuro's wanted poster in Luffy's hands. Wanted, Kuro of the 100 Plans, Captain of the Black Cat Pirates. Reward, 16 million beras. Dead or alive. Third-person POV. Village Syrup, East Blue. On the beach near Syrup Village, Luffy stood in front of his entire crew and Usopp, holding up a wanted poster he had obtained through a point. He had collected thousands of wanted posters, but this one was special. It featured Kuro, a pirate who was believed to be dead. Did you say this pirate Kuro was actually the butler Clawdor all along? Usopp asked in disbelief. Are you sure he's not his brother? Yamato inquired. No, it's him all along. I had some information that he was hiding on this island for a while, and I confirmed it today. The idiot had the audacity to openly insult us just because I have a bounty of 10 million berries, lower than his, but I bet after the beating I gave him, he won't be getting out of bed for the next 3 days. Luffy said with a grin. But even so, Kaya is in danger. Usopp exclaimed. Then it's your duty to save her, Usopp, Luffy said calmly. Me? Usopp asked, astounded. He might have seen Luffy defeat Kuro with ease, but he knew he wasn't a monster like that Straw Hat Man. Yes, to be honest, I saw you insulting her just like your own father, while you kept quiet. I thought you were a brave sea warrior. But what I saw was just a coward. Luffy's smile faded, and he looked seriously at Usopp. Usopp was taken aback by this. He never expected someone to call out his true personality in such a critical moment, making him lower his head in shame. Nami was the first to speak up in her maid outfit. Luffy-sama, you don't need to. Shirahoshi as well was about to comment, please, I'm just a maid. Silence, Luffy said sternly, and they fell silent. I admit, I was tempted to recruit you, but I was disappointed with what I saw, making me wonder if you're really your father's son. And no, Usopp, I won't help her because she herself banished me from her place. I have nothing to do with her if her life is in danger now. Luffy spoke indifferently, which made Usopp even more cower in the face of this reality, thinking that he would watch Kaya die without being able to do anything. But, I can help you get stronger, Luffy continued. You can? Usopp asked incredulously. Yes, but it won't be easy. I'll make you experience hell on earth if you want. But at least you'll have a chance to face Kuro. What do you say? We might have 3 days before he starts his plans. Do you really want this? Luffy didn't change his serious tone, making everyone wonder what they had done to their captain and who stood in front of them, as Luffy had never been so serious with them. The long-nosed young man contemplated Luffy's words and stood up to face the man over 2 meters tall with determination. I want it. Make me strong to protect Kaya. Usopp finally spoke with determination, and Luffy smiled at that. That's the first step. Now let's start your hellish training. Luffy said with a mischievous grin, even releasing some of his Zoan power, causing his eyes to glow and purple flames to surround his body, which frightened Usopp and the others. Your first training will be to get used to the feeling of facing death. Maybe that will make you less of a coward. Luffy spoke as he exerted pressure. Usopp was scared and intimidated as he shrank back from Luffy. He began to wonder if he had made the right decision when he agreed to train with this pirate. The rest of the day, Usopp didn't have an easy moment and it would only get much harder the next day. The following morning, Usopp found himself in an open field on the outskirts of Syrup Village, with the east blue sun shining brightly in the sky. Luffy and Usopp stood a certain distance apart, surveying the scene before them. Usopp held an unfamiliar object in his hand, a new type of weapon he had never used before. But under Luffy's guidance, it was the weapon that would accompany him on their adventures. The field was filled with improvised targets that Luffy had acquired through the system, from high-quality equipment to empty cans and thin branches hanging from ropes. Luffy explained to Usopp, to become a skilled sniper, you need to enhance your accuracy, speed, and reaction. Let's start with precise shots. The goal is to hit those targets with surgical precision. Usopp nodded, focusing on the nearest target. He took a deep breath, stabilized his stance, and aimed with determination. Then, he fired. Bang! The ammunition flew at a surprising speed, hitting the central target with a satisfying metallic sound. Usopp smiled at the accuracy of his first shot. Luffy applauded Usopp's effort. Well done, Usopp. Now, try to hit that moving target. He pointed to a swinging target. Usopp focused once again, tracking the moving target with his aim. He waited for the right moment and released the bullet. It flew through the air and struck the moving target, making it stop swinging. Usopp smiled, feeling more confident in his shooting. Luffy continued to train him, adding challenges such as shooting at multiple targets in high-pressure situations. As the hours passed, Usopp became more comfortable with his new weapon, improving his skills and reactions. Luffy also emphasized the importance of concentration and breath control. As the training progressed, Usopp became more skilled and confident in his shooting abilities. He realized that with dedication and proper guidance, he could become an exceptional sniper like his father, according to Luffy's descriptions. Gradually, he began to pave the way to becoming the sniper his crew needed. The scene of training, with targets being accurately hit and the east blue sun shining in Usopp's eyes as he devoted himself to improving his skills, created an environment of growth and progress in his journey as a sniper. Little did he know that this was the easiest part of his training. Luffy had no intention of letting up on his endurance and physical strength training. Not to mention that he would need to learn about all his new weapons and put his slingshot aside. 3 days passed. Usopp lay on the ground, resembling a battered dog. He had no more strength left to continue his training for today. Luffy looked at him with an indifferent expression, just as he did with the rest of the crew sprawled on the ground behind Usopp. Luffy had put everyone through rigorous training, including Nami, Shirahoshi, and even Chaochu. He trained Chaochu in increased gravity and weights. Although the dog didn't have humanoid limbs, he could become stronger once he learned Haki. Luffy intended to teach a dog Haki, but he needed to buy the manuals first, which were quite expensive, along with the 6 styles of the marine. Is this your limit? Luffy asked seriously, addressing Usopp, Nami, and Shirahoshi, who were the worst off among them. I can't take it anymore. Please, I'm just a maid. Luffy-sama is so mean. Buaaaa. The 3 of them, utterly drained, responded to this question with lifeless eyes. Luffy just sighed. He wouldn't tolerate weakness to make them stronger. He was determined to turn them into strong warriors. You can do better than this. Luffy replied without hesitation. He learned a lot from his grandfather. Kuina and Zoro seemed unwavering in their determination, despite being in the same condition as the previous 3, they didn't give up easily and kept pushing through the training. In any case, training is over for today, Luffy finally said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The 3, who were completely wrecked, cried out in gratitude. It was quite fun. Yamato said, with a towel wrapped around her neck. She had trained relentlessly with Luffy, even engaging in sparring matches with him. Of course, Luffy had been training as well, testing the potential of his body. He was satisfied with the combination of his increased learning speed from the system and his Zoan power, which allowed him to make progress. He was working hard to develop his devil fruit powers further. But Usopp, you better be prepared. The Kuro pirates are expected to arrive tomorrow. Get everything ready by sunrise. I've left new equipment for you. Study the manuals I provided. Luffy warned. Yes. Usopp replied with determination, closing his fist. Do you think he'll be okay? He's going to fight a pirate with a 16 million bounty, after all, Nami asked as she limped over to Luffy. This is a trial he needs to pass, otherwise, the sea won't be kind to him, Luffy said, thinking about how weak Usopp was in the original story. He wanted the lying long-nosed sniper to reveal his true potential as soon as possible because their journey wouldn't be as enjoyable as in the anime. Luffy was certain he would encounter his grandfather in the East Blue before entering the Grand Line, and their battle wouldn't be a quiet one. He would have to use a considerable amount of his devil fruit power, even undergoing a complete transformation. He was training to enhance the power of his fruit. Apart from his grandfather, he had no intention of losing to Kuzan and Kizura during their journey. If they ever crossed paths, he wouldn't hesitate to display significant strength. While he wasn't strong yet, he could continue to increase his strength until that time arrived. I'm counting on it, Usopp, Luffy murmured as he watched Usopp walk away toward his home, struggling to walk. Raccoon here. Stone stone. Help this fanfic grow, cast power stones, and leave a review if possible. You are my motivator to keep this fanfic going daily. I appreciate your early support in following this exciting journey. I hope each chapter has provided incredible moments. If you enjoy my work and would like to support the continuation of this fanfic, consider becoming a patron. As a token of gratitude, I offer access to up to 20 extra chapters and other exclusive benefits on my Patreon. Days Raccoon Patreon /Days Raccoon. Extra content already available. One Piece, I Am a Different Luffy. Planning to maintain 30 extra chapters. Danmachi, Infinite Mana System. Planning to maintain 30 extra chapters. Game of Thrones, The Legend of John Arctic. Planning to maintain 10 extra chapters. Naruto, Minato Namikaze SI, in development, awaiting the future. Your support is very much welcome to keep the story we're building alive. Thank you very much for the consideration and for being part of this journey. I hope you continue to enjoy the story. Third-person POV. Village Syrup, East Blue. Syrup Village, East Blue, Dawn. The island was enveloped in the tranquil beauty of the morning, with the sun beginning to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in golden and soft orange hues. The waves gently lapped at the fine sandy beach, creating a trail of white foam along the shore. Seagulls soared in the sky, their melodious cries filling the air as they sought their first meals of the day. Then, a distant sound began to break the island's serenity. At first, it was just an almost imperceptible murmur, almost like the whisper of a sea breeze. But soon, it intensified, turning into an unmistakable roar that cut through the air. It was the sound of an approaching ship. From the horizon, a pirate ship emerged, its imposing silhouette cutting through the sea. Tattered, black sails, weathered by time, fluttered in the wind as the ship relentlessly approached the island's coast. The ship's hull bore the emblem of a black cat, a sinister representation of its crew. As the pirate ship drew nearer, the excited shouts of dozens of men could be heard, echoing across the beach and disrupting the morning's tranquility. They were not welcome on that peaceful island, and their intentions were vile. They had been summoned by their former captain, Kuro, who had issued orders through a private Den Mushi to attack the island. The Black Cat pirates were in action under the leadership of the vice-captain, Django, who now commanded them as they waited on the beach. The men disembarked with a cruel determination in their eyes, ready to plunder the village. The arrival of the pirate ship cast a possible ominous shadow over the tranquil island, and the fate of the island was about to be decided by the events that would unfold next. After the ship finally stopped, they found themselves on a deserted and isolated beach. Here, the initial commotion began to subside, and they sought a safe place to regroup before launching their attack on the village. The scenery around them was impressive. The beach stretched across a peaceful sandy expanse, with few signs of human life or activity. The sound of the waves gently breaking against the shore echoed, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and tension. The pirates began to spread out on the beach, some gathering in small groups to discuss strategies, while others walked on the sand, looking around to ensure they were safe and away from prying eyes. Their weapons were still at hand, ready to be used at any moment. Django, the vice-captain, was at the center of the group, giving orders and coordinating the pirates to prepare for the imminent attack on the village. They checked their weapons, adjusted their clothing, and reinforced each other, ready for the impending battle. They were the Black Cat pirates, who were currently operating under the orders of the vice-captain, Django, acting in secret for the past few years. Let's go, everyone. Regroup with Captain Kuro before we invade the village. Django commanded with enthusiasm as they disembarked and gathered on the beach. I see that you've arrived earlier than I imagined, a new voice interrupted the pirates' movements, surprising them and, at the same time, bringing relief when they recognized the voice's owner. Captain Kuro. What happened to you? Django questioned their former captain as he spotted him. Kuro stood before them, with much of his body wrapped in bandages and an arm immobilized by a splint, evidence of a recent injury. With a determined look, Kuro clenched his teeth tightly, still consumed by the memories of his humiliation and eager for an opportunity for revenge. Some damn pirate showed up and did this to me. Kuro growled, echoing the memories of the events of the past few days. He remembered how he had contemptuously taunted a group of pirates with bounties lower than his own, only to be brutally defeated by their captain, with no chance of counterattack. The humiliation still burned in his memory. Kuro felt a burning rage welling up inside him, a rage that seemed to consume him after the terrible beating he had taken from Monkey D. Luffy. That defeat at the hands of the young man with the straw hat had been a devastating blow to his proud self-image. Kuro could barely bear the thought of how his grandeur and renown had been shattered by that boy with a straw hat. Every memory of that brutal fight, Luffy's precise blows, and the young pirate's indomitable power fueled his growing anger. He could never have imagined that he would fall to such an extent, to be brutally defeated by the group of pirates he had taunted. Now, Kuro was obsessed, his mind fixed on a single idea, revenge against the man with the straw hat who had dethroned him and reduced him to a pitiable state. Anyway, let's start the attack. Django, come with me. I've already taken the necessary measures in the mansion, but I need your skill to get Kaya to sign the will documents, announced Kuro, his eyes shining with determination as they prepared to launch the attack on the village. However, before they could give the order, something unexpected happened, interrupting their conversation. Bang! A blast cut through the air, and a bullet fell with a clatter on the ground, right in front of the group of pirates. They all turned to the source of the attack, finding a long-nosed man perched on top of a hill about 400 meters away. He was crouched, holding a rifle firmly, his eyes focused on the approaching pirate group. It's you, Kuro couldn't help but taunt when he recognized the man. I didn't expect to find you here, Usopp, but it's a great surprise. I might even kill you before. Kuro couldn't finish the sentence when suddenly, one of the pirates in front of him took a shot to the head. The impact of the bullet caused blood to splatter on the scene, some drops even landed on Kuro's clothes, leaving him stunned. As Kuro tried to process this new information, Usopp, with his deadly aim, fired his rifle, proving that his skills were far more dangerous than Kuro had ever imagined. Shock and surprise were clearly reflected on Kuro's face as he tried to comprehend the surprising turn of events. Usopp had caught Kuro off guard, who had only expected to face a storyteller but found himself facing a skilled and deadly sharpshooter. He couldn't help but question Usopp's newly discovered capabilities, and this revelation made him realize that he had seriously underestimated the long-nosed boy. While Kuro tried to process this new information, Usopp, still crouched, took the opportunity to reload his rifle. The weapon, acquired by Luffy at the store, was a prototype created by Vegapunk, costing only 5 points. It was a powerful piece of technology that outperformed the weapons used by the Marines, and the world government had not yet produced it on a large scale. Usopp, wasting no time, fired more precise shots at the Black Cat pirates. Bang! 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 Asterisk bang! 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 The gunshots echoed as Usopp relentlessly targeted the invading Black Cat pirates as they advanced along the beach. With determination, he fired accurate shots, ruthlessly taking down the invaders before an explosion occurred. Usopp's precise shots were like bullets guided by destiny, finding their targets with deadly accuracy. The roar of the shots was accompanied by the cries of pain from the pirates hit, one by one falling. The scene was a whirlwind of chaos and desperation, with the Black Cat pirates desperately seeking shelter, but Usopp showed no mercy. His focused gaze and unwavering determination did not waver, and he continued to eliminate his enemies with lethal precision, an impressive display of skill and courage amid the impending confrontation. Usopp demonstrated astounding marksmanship, taking down a dozen pirates with accurate shots. His weapon, with the ability to store multiple cartridges in the magazine, only accentuated his deadly skill. It was as if Usopp possessed an innate gift for taking down his targets, a skill that echoed his father's talent. While Usopp kept the Black Cat pirates at bay, on the other side of a hill, Luffy and his companions watched the scene with attentive eyes. I'm quite satisfied with this now, Luffy murmured, unable to contain a smile. He had managed to awaken Usopp's bravest side, forcing him to confront his fears and take responsibility for protecting Kaya. Through rigorous training in recent days, Luffy had acquired an arsenal of weapons at the store, especially for Usopp. He spared no effort, subjecting the boy to tough training and forcing him to learn how to use all available weapons. Luffy wanted Usopp to understand that the world was not a place of childish dreams, and that he would have to be willing to get his hands dirty with the blood of his enemies if he wanted to protect Kaya. Despite the suffering Usopp had endured in the past 3 days, he was determined to protect Kaya, even if it meant staining his hands with the blood of the pirates. His determination to fulfill this mission and rescue Kaya was stronger than ever. Bang! Reload! Bang! 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 Usopp turned out to be a natural master with weapons, something Luffy had already noticed. He lamented that in the anime, Usopp had been relegated to using his slingshot. This is the kind of sharpshooter my crew and I need on my ship, Luffy commented, admiring Usopp's skills. Are we just going to watch? Nami asked beside him in her characteristic attire. For now, yes, but it looks like he might not be able to handle all of them. Zoro, do you want to get in on the action? Luffy asked Zoro. Of course, it's been a while since I've fought, and I'm eager to see the result of my training." Zoro couldn't help but smile with anticipation. "Then go. Let Usopp deal with Kuro. I want him to surpass Kuro here." Luffy made the decision, and Zoro leaped from where they were towards the beach. Kuro boiled with anger, his plans were being thwarted by a boy he never imagined would be capable of killing someone. He looked around and saw a large number of his crew dead on the way, victims of the skilled sharpshooter. In his path, there were many bodies left behind as they tried to reach Usopp, who was on the hill. Kuro, consumed by rage, realized he had no choice. With fury, he used an ability he had developed, inspired by a theory he had seen in the styles used by the Marines and the CP, Rokushiki/Soru. He advanced towards Usopp with only one arm, his claws ready to kill the boy once he was within his reach. Usopp, on the other hand, showed no hesitation. He looked seriously at Kuro's advance and dropped his rifle to pick up a military bag by his side. Kuro was stunned when Usopp removed pins from a strange object he couldn't identify and threw them on the path. The small, almost ball-shaped spheres fell in Kuro's way before he could reach them. However, he didn't have time to maneuver around these objects as he had already used his technique to approach Usopp. When Kuro was about to reach the spheres, he realized too late that they simply exploded, engulfing him in a sudden blast. Boom! Captain Kuro! The Black Cat pirates couldn't contain their shock and astonishment as they saw their former captain being engulfed by the violent explosion. "Let's go! Hurry, help Captain Kuro! It's just a kid!" The few survivors among the pirates began to rush toward the explosion, their eyes filled with hatred because Usopp had caught them completely off guard and caused the deaths of many of their comrades. "Where do you think you're going?" A new voice interrupted the determined advance of the group of pirates. A man with 3 swords strapped to his waist appeared in their path, blocking them. "Who the hell are you, you bastard?" Django roared in anger, prevented from advancing. The plan to plunder the island and get rich was becoming increasingly frustrating. "My name is Roronoa Zoro, and I will be your opponent," Zoro declared, with a confident smile and the posture of someone ready for battle. "Raccoon here. Stone. Help this fanfic grow, cast power stones, and leave a review if possible. You are my motivator to keep this fanfic going daily. I appreciate your early support in following this exciting journey. I hope each chapter has provided incredible moments. If you enjoy my work and would like to support the continuation of this fanfic, consider becoming a patron. As a token of gratitude, I offer access to up to 20 extra chapters and other exclusive benefits on my Patreon. Days Raccoon Patreon /Days Raccoon. Extra content already available. One Piece, I Am a Different Luffy. Planning to maintain 30 extra chapters. Danmachi, Infinite Mana System. Planning to maintain 30 extra chapters. Game of Thrones, The Legend of John Arctic. Planning to maintain 10 extra chapters. Naruto, Minato Namikaze Si, in development, awaiting the future. Your support is very much welcome to keep the story we're building alive. Thank you very much for the consideration and for being part of this journey. I hope you continue to enjoy the story. Chapter size, 1937 words. Third-person POV. Syrup Village, East Blue. The explosion occurred on a hill near the island's Syrup Beach. The hill was covered with low vegetation and scattered trees, providing natural cover. The ground was uneven, with small stones and rocks scattered around. The vegetation, though not dense, added a touch of green to the surroundings. The explosion on the hill caused visible damage. Vegetation was uprooted, rocks were displaced, and the ground was churned and scorched. Fragments of grenades and debris were scattered across the rugged terrain, making the area chaotic and marked by the battle that took place between Usopp and Kuro. The smoke from the explosion rose into the air, obscuring the view and contributing to a tense atmosphere. Kuro had been caught in the midst of the explosion, and the hill was the backdrop for the surprising turn of events in the showdown between the two. "You bastard!" Kuro shouted with pure hatred, his expression a mix of anger and pain after being caught off guard by the grenades and the ensuing explosion. His body was marked and bloody, his clothes in tatters, but he remained standing, glaring at Usopp with a look of disdain and determination. When the smoke cleared, Usopp found himself facing the wounded figure of Kuro. The former captain of the Black Cat pirates was visibly shaken, with his bandages in plain sight and his face bloodied. However, his menacing presence hadn't diminished, and he stared at the long-nosed boy with a mixture of anger and contempt. Yet the fear that Usopp had initially felt upon seeing him soon gave way to renewed determination. He knew that Kaya's safety depended on him and that he couldn't back down now. According to Luffy, Kaya's life depends solely on me. I must face the man in front of me and defeat him at any cost. Usopp thought, strengthening his resolve. The butler, watching the scene closely, didn't like the new determined look on Usopp. Kuro, on the other hand, wasted no time and proclaimed in fury, "You wretch, I'll send you straight to hell." With that, he advanced toward Usopp, his claws ready to attack, despite having only one usable hand. Usopp, planning his strategic attack, had prepared a bag full of C4 explosives to use against Kuro. He strategically placed the bag at the top of the hill, where he was positioned before jumping to dodge Kuro's attack. The explosives were carefully arranged in the bag, ready to be detonated with a remote control that Usopp carried with him. The bag contained a substantial amount of these powerful explosives, meaning the impact of the explosion would be devastating. Usopp, agile and determined, quickly evaded Kuro's attack and leaped from the hill, avoiding his deadly claws. As Usopp hovered in the air, he pulled a remote control from his bag and, without giving Kuro time to react, pressed the button. The bag that Usopp had left behind contained C4 bombs, and when the buttons were pressed, all the bombs detonated. A deafening blast echoed across the entire beach, and the sound reached the village several kilometers away. Usopp was also caught in the explosion, as he was relatively close, but he didn't retreat. He launched the attack, risking his own life even though he was aware of this fact, which made him fall to the ground, panting and seriously injured. With dust in the air, Usopp asked with difficulty, "Did I get him?" However, before he could react, a man even more injured than before appeared in front of him. Kuro moved with pure hatred and attacked. Usopp felt excruciating pain when his left shoulder was pierced by Kuro's claws after the surprise attack. A cry of agony escaped Usopp's lips as the pain intensified following Kuro's attack. "I'll make you suffer for all of this." Kuro snarled with insane malice, as if he were losing control. "I won't let you lay a finger on Kaya." Usopp shouted with determination, drawing a pistol from his hip and catching Kuro off guard. With a point-blank shot, the bullet struck Kuro's leg, which was already too wounded to dodge easily. The impact of the bullet caused his claws to release Usopp, and Kuro vanished, reappearing in a corner, kneeling with his wounded leg oozing blood. "You wretch!" Kuro roared again at Usopp amid the excruciating pain. Meanwhile, on the other side, Luffy, Nami, Zoro, and the others observed the situation closely. "Are you the famous Roronoa Zoro?" Django finally broke the silence, watching Zoro quickly defeat the pirates who had tried to face him in the last few seconds. Anger was beginning to overwhelm Django, as he couldn't see Captain Kuro's fight but heard the explosions in the distance. He was starting to realize that things weren't going as planned. "Yet," Zoro replied with conviction, untying a cloth from his waist and tying his iconic green bandana to his head. With one of the three swords between his teeth and the other two wielded in each hand, he looked determinedly at the group of pirates. "I will be your opponent," Zoro concluded, his eyes reflecting pure determination as he prepared to face his opponents. "Don't underestimate our enemies. Everyone, pay attention!" Django ordered, and the pirates approached, surrounding Zoro in this crucial moment. Django took out his hypnosis medallion and began to swing it in front of everyone present. "What is he doing, Luffy-sama?" Shirahoshi, beside Luffy on the more distant hill, asked as she watched the ongoing battles. She had been worried about Usopp when he faced Kuro but was relieved to see him exit the fight, even though injured. "He's about to use hypnosis to strengthen everyone," Luffy explained, keeping his cool as he watched Django's medallion sway. "Hypnosis? Will that really work?" Nami asked beside them, expressing doubts about the effectiveness of this method. "You'd be surprised at the results," Luffy admitted. He recognized the value of Django's ability, even though it wasn't his preferred style. Luffy had always felt a certain discomfort with abilities that affected people's minds, both in this life and the previous one. He would never consider Django as a possible crew member, despite this intriguing ability, as he disliked powers that tampered with people's minds. Returning to Django's scene. "You'll get stronger, stronger." When Django said these words, they began to become a kind of rabid animals, punching the nearby rocks, even cracking them with the sudden increase in physical strength. This, Nami was stunned. Shirahoshi just placed her hand on her mouth, equally stunned. "Sharky. Woof. It's impossible." Kuina couldn't help but comment. While the members by his side were stunned by the demonstration, Luffy turned his attention to an equally stunned Zoro and activated his devil fruit power. "Moa Moa no Mi, sound, amplify 20 times. Zoro, I see you're facing a challenge. Do you need help?" Luffy spoke calmly, although his voice resonated across the entire beach with unexpected volume. The sudden sound explosion surprised everyone on the beach, especially his close companions, who had to cover their ears due to the proximity of the captain. Zoro, however, looked towards Luffy with determination. "No worries, Captain, I can handle this on my own." Zoro responded, his voice filled with confidence as he clenched the sword between his teeth even tighter and held the other two firmly in his hands. He was ready for battle and determined to face this challenge. After intense days of training, Zoro felt that he had made progress, and this would be the perfect opportunity to test the results of his hard work. Django, taken aback by the sudden sound explosion, diverted his gaze to the hill, realizing that now it wasn't just Zoro who would require his attention. Without wasting time, he immediately issued a loud and urgent command, while Zoro prepared for the showdown. Attack! He shouted, and with this command, the pirates launched themselves in Zoro's direction with threatening cries and roars. With a calm demeanor and focused eyes, Zoro awaited the approach of his adversaries. He kept the sword between his teeth, while the other two were ready in his hands, poised to be employed lethally at any moment. As the pirates closed in, Zoro remained steadfast and unwavering, ready to face them all. Each step the pirates took was a step toward the imminent confrontation, and Zoro was determined to prove his progress and skill in the upcoming battles. Slash! 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 Zoro's katanas swirled deftly, creating a whirlwind of sharp steel as he moved in the heat of battle. He skillfully evaded punches and attacks with other weapons coming his way, using his opponent's strength against them. The metallic sound of blades colliding echoed across the battlefield, and Zoro maintained his unwavering concentration and fearlessness. The hypnotized pirates advanced on him, blinded by their loyalty to Django and unable to perceive the disadvantage they were in. As Zoro's blades cut through them, some pirates fell to the ground, wounded or dead. The swordsman's ability was evident, and his fight was a deadly dance of steel. Django, on the other hand, was growing increasingly alarmed as he saw his crew being defeated one by one. His face showed concern, and he began to understand that he had seriously underestimated Zoro's power. The smile on the captain's face on the hill reflected his pride as he watched his swordsman in action, aware that the intensive training and system bonuses were yielding remarkable results. He really got strong, Kuina remarked beside Luffy, admiring Zoro's skill in battle. Luffy couldn't resist the opportunity to tease the girl. He's stronger than you. Kuina maintained her composure and responded with determination. Yes, I'm 11 years behind, I'm not surprised. But I'll catch up to him soon. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates joked with a mischievous smile. So have you already agreed to join my pirate crew? Kuina laughed at his question. Not so fast, clever boy. Our agreement is until I see my father, before making any decisions. Luffy nodded understandingly. I see. However, the atmosphere changed dramatically when a deafening scream echoed across the battlefield. Luffy, Kuina, and the others turned to see Yamato screaming like an animal, her features distorted. The surprised expression on Luffy's face gave way to concern as he watched his vice-captain's strange behavior. Yamato. She got hypnotized too. Holding his mace and growling like an animal, Yamato jumped off the hill and flew towards Django and the other pirates fighting Zoro. Zoro and the pirates could only stare in surprise at the shadow appearing in the sky, revealing a woman holding a mace as she prepared to blow up the ground in front of everyone. Before anyone could react, it was already too late to dodge. Boom! The explosion reverberated across the battlefield, leaving everyone stunned and covered in dust. Yamato's unexpected reaction added a comedic touch to a tense situation, surprising everyone with her explosive entrance. Django, along with all the pirates, conscious and unconscious, was sent flying through the air, with Zoro following the scene in bewilderment and yelling. At the same time, Luffy watched everything with a shocked look and then slapped himself in the face, muttering, "Why didn't I foresee this? Ha ha ha. Sorry about that, Zoro." Yamato, who had already returned to her normal state, emerged from the wreckage and scratched her head sheepishly, laughing with a comical expression. It was a bit more explosive than I intended. Zoro, emerging from the debris dirty and with his teeth making a funny shark-like grimace, shouted, "Ei! Why did you attack me too?" Sorry. Yamato replied, still scratching her head, while both of them were in the middle of that giant crater caused by the strike. Third-person POV. Syrup Village, East Blue. Zoro, I can see you've got a problem, need some help. This sudden, loud voice made Usopp and Kuro look up the hill where Luffy and the others were. Kuro fixed his burning gaze on Luffy as he spotted him for the first time in the corner of that island under the clear sky. His once intense eyes seemed to spark with unquenchable anger. To Kuro, Luffy's mere presence was a burning wound that turned the peaceful island into an emotional battleground. The origin of his hatred was rooted in the understanding that it was Luffy himself who had sown the seeds of destruction in his elaborate plans. Every failure and twist that threatened his meticulous strategy could be directly traced back to Luffy and his Straw Hat Pirates. Kuro's anger burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns, as he blamed the pirate captain for every setback and obstacle in his path. The discovery that Usopp, someone he had never expected to be so relentless, was under Luffy's influence only fueled Kuro's hatred further. Usopp, the boy he had once known, had become unrecognizable, reinforcing the feelings of powerlessness and anger within Kuro. He wondered how Luffy had managed to wield such influence over one of his former crew members, making him a formidable opponent. Kuro couldn't comprehend how everything had unraveled so quickly, how his carefully laid machinations had come undone in a whirlwind of problems and twists. The only certainty he had was that Luffy was aware of his true identity, and that only heightened the fury burning in his heart. Despite suffering a crushing defeat at the hands of Luffy in a previous confrontation, the mere presence of the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates caused Kuro's anger to grow with each passing second. He couldn't believe that Luffy's group had disappeared after the beating he had taken. The idea that they had abandoned him further fueled his anger, and he remained convinced that, with the help of his old crew, he could deal with Luffy and his companions. Now, with the sunny and tranquil scenery, Luffy's presence only added fuel to the fire of hatred burning inside Kuro. The impending confrontation promised to be an explosion of pent-up emotions as Kuro, determined to avenge his defeats and restore his honor, faced Luffy with a ferocity that only an enemy fueled by the deepest and hottest hatred could display. My meticulously laid plans are in tatters, but at least I'll be rid of you. Kuro roared in frustration, his words dripping with poison as he watched helplessly as his intricate scheme crumbled. He knew that facing Luffy was a sentence of defeat, vividly remembering the previous humiliation and the imminent destruction that loomed over his crew, caused by another relentless force. Usopp's eyes remained firm and determined, hiding the torrent of fear bubbling inside him. The tension was unbearable, causing his body to tremble involuntarily. However, Usopp's courage spoke louder when he convinced himself that he had no choice but to face Kuro, all in order to protect Kaya, his friend and the only light in the midst of the looming darkness. I won't allow it! Usopp exclaimed with a trembling voice, but filled with determination. With the agility of an experienced marksman, he drew his pistol and fired directly at Kuro. The sharp sound of the shots pierced the air, echoing as a challenge to everything Kuro represented. Bang! 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 Kuro, even with his injured leg, skillfully resorted to his superhuman agility to dodge the bullets, displaying impressive agility that defied logic. Even though the pain of the wound was present, his determination was unwavering. The bullets whizzed through the air, but Kuro remained unscathed, maintaining the distance between him and the deadly ammunition. Die! Kuro bellowed, bursting into an relentless charge towards the long-nosed liar, his face contorted by uncontrollable fury that boiled within him. The thirst for vengeance fueled his strength, making him even more threatening. As Kuro closed in on Usopp, the sniper found himself in a critical situation. Needing to reload his weapon, he momentarily found himself defenseless. However, before he could take any action, a deafening roar echoed through the air. Hum! Boom! A grenade exploded violently near Usopp, engulfing him in a cloud of smoke and destruction. The explosion caught Kuro and even Usopp himself, creating a scene of chaos and devastation. Even amid the chaos and the pain that surrounded him, Usopp recognized the need for his sacrifice. He was willing to endure any suffering to stop the vile pirate who threatened his friend and his island. The intense pain he felt became a tangible testament to his courage, a testimony of the price he was willing to pay to protect those he loved. Usopp emerged from the explosion as a fearless hero, far from unscathed. When the dust finally settled, his body was riddled with injuries, a series of cuts and bruises bearing witness to the brutality of the confrontation. Blood flowed from his wounds, staining his attire and the arid ground of the island. Kuro's hoarse and hate-filled voice echoed across the scene, revealing him amidst the carnage. His figure was visibly worn out, a mask of cruelty and blood that covered his already exhausted body. The pirate bled from numerous lacerations, a living testament to the wounds inflicted during the battle. Yet, his fierce determination still burned in his eyes. Usopp, despite the intense pain that tormented him, did not back down from the bloodied adversary. In times past, he might have succumbed to fear and fled, but now, courage compelled him to face the cruel man and exact vengeance for all that Kuro had caused. His voice, though trembling, echoed through the battlefield. "I'll stop you!" Usopp proclaimed, unwavering determination in his voice. He aimed his pistol once more, pointing it at his relentless opponent. Kuro, despite his weakened condition, didn't hesitate to respond. With the last reserves of strength within him, he shouted in return. "Die!" He advanced with a terrifying intensity, knowing that the battle had reached its climax. His offensive was a display of the fierceness of his will, even if he was at the limit of his endurance. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from where he stood, delivering a precise and swift strike that cut across Usopp's chest before he could react. "Ah!" Usopp's cry of pain echoed through the scene as he fell backward to the ground, his skin tingling with the searing pain radiating from his wound. Kuro, with a cold and challenging gaze, uttered threatening words as he looked at Usopp, lying on the ground, covered in blood. "I might lose or even die here, but at the very least, I will kill you," he said coldly, his voice echoing in the tense air. However, just as he was about to strike Usopp's head with his deadly blades, a small pebble struck his head, causing him to pause and turn his gaze in the direction of the thrown object's origin. There stood Kaya, tears streaming down her face as she held another stone on the ground, determined to interrupt the imminent atrocity. "I won't let you kill Usopp!" Kaya shouted firmly, her voice trembling with fear but resolute to face the danger on behalf of her friend. "Kaya, Usopp muttered, his face contorted with concern, as he lay helpless on the ground and shouted with all his might, using his last energies to try to protect his friend. Kaya, get out of here! He growled, urgency echoing in his voice, knowing that Kuro was about to direct his unbridled rage toward the defenseless girl. Immersed in the madness of his fury, Kuro abruptly turned toward Kaya, his hands taking on the form of lethal claws as he advanced toward the defenseless girl, determined to cause as much destruction as possible. Kaya was alarmed, her eyes widening in terror as Kuro appeared before her, his deadly claws poised to strike. Kya! Usopp's anguished cry resonated through the chaotic scene, his desperation echoing in the air as he helplessly watched the terrible threat approach his friend. Boom! The deafening roar of Yamato's explosion made the ground tremble violently in that remote corner of this island. Kuro, already severely wounded, lost his balance and stumbled over his own injuries, his expression of rage turning into a grimace of pain. Amidst the chaos, a gunshot rang out, breaking the silence that followed the explosion. It was Usopp, who seized the moment when Kuro lost part of his balance to shoot his weapon at the villain's back. Kaya watched in terror, her eyes fixed on Kuro's chest, where blood spurted from the spot where his heart should be. Usopp, with no other options, acted on instinct and fired again, aiming for the heart of the man who threatened Kaya's life. Silence fell over the battlefield, now stained with blood. Kuro, dazed, knelt down, touching his bloodied chest, unable to comprehend the rapid turn of fate. It didn't take long for him to fall to the ground, lifeless. Meanwhile, Luffy displayed a small smile, observing the scene of the two battles that had unfolded. For someone who said he didn't care about their lives, you were about to move when they were on the brink of death, Kuina commented with an amused look next to the captain. A smile also appeared on Nami and Shirahashi's lips, who were watching the scene from a distance. I don't know what you're talking about, Luffy responded, somewhat embarrassed but proud of his comrades. But before anyone could tease him further, he jumped from the hill to see Yamato and Zoro. Seeing him leave, Kuina and the others could only follow the captain, wanting to avoid any provocation they were about to make. I see you've put on quite a show, Luffy couldn't help but comment, looking at the scene that Yamato had created on the beach. He. Yamato laughed nervously and embarrassed, while Zoro grumbled at the sight. Anyway, let's tie them up. We'll have Lamy and Bappo hand them over to the Marines in the next few days. Luffy gave the order, and both of them began to do just that, with Nami being the most eager to complete the task, thinking about the money she would earn when these defeated pirates were delivered to a naval base. Watching this, Luffy went to where the young hero was lying, injured. You fought better than I thought. Luffy quickly reached Kaya and began tending to Usopp with Kuro's lifeless body a few meters away from them. I believe so. Thank you. It was the only thing Usopp managed to say as he looked as bad as he did when Luffy saw the birth of God Usopp in Dressrosa. Thank you for helping, Kaya couldn't help but comment as she inspected the long-nosed man's injuries. Don't worry, I wanted to see if my future sharpshooter was worthy to face the sea, which will be much harder than this battle, at least here. I wasn't disappointed, Luffy commented with a smile. Usopp just nodded in silence. It didn't take long for them to move Usopp to Kaya's mansion after all the pirates were tied up. With the convulsion resolved, Mary prepared a banquet for the group to celebrate the victory in such a difficult moment. The butler was quite wounded, as Kaya had found him injured by Kuro before heading to the beach. Third-person POV. Syrup Village, East Blue. A few hours later, the group gathered at Kaya's mansion. The tension that had dominated the previous moments had given way to a sense of relief and gratitude for having averted the imminent danger that loomed over the village. The battle against Kuro and the desperate fight to protect the peaceful Syrup Village were still fresh in the minds of Usopp and Kaya, but most of the village residents remained unaware of the true peril they had faced. Usopp, injured during the confrontation, had been brought back to the mansion and was being taken care of. Kaya's emotional reunion with her friend, who had risked everything to protect her, had been a touching moment. You're really a mermaid! Kaya exclaimed in amazement as she saw Shirahashi's tail on the sofa, revealing the secret the princess had guarded so carefully. Surprise and admiration shone in her eyes as she beheld the majestic mermaid tail. Yes, I am, Kaya-sama, the princess responded with a shy tone, her voice revealing a mix of pride and humility in the face of recognition. Nami's announcement added extra excitement to the atmosphere. So, for our help, I believe we deserve at least 10 million berries. Nami exclaimed, referring to the payment for the assistance provided. Her eyes sparkled with the prospect of a reward, while Mary, who was sitting in a corner of the room, watched with a surprised expression at the audacity of the group's current maid. The atmosphere in the mansion had transformed into a space of celebration and gratitude. The group came together to celebrate the success of their mission in helping Kaya and the village rid themselves of the threat posed by Kuro and his gang. The tense mood that had dominated the village had been replaced by a feeling of relief and gratitude, and everyone enjoyed this moment of shared joy. The atmosphere in the mansion was relaxed as the group enjoyed a brief moment of peace and celebration. They all settled in, savoring the delicious treats Mary had provided, demonstrating that her culinary skills extended beyond making tea. "This tea is delicious, Mary," Kuina commented serenely while sipping her favorite drink, maintaining a dignified posture that set her apart from the others. "The sake is great too," Zoro added, drinking directly from a barrel, his throat burning from the liquor he enjoyed. Meanwhile, Kuina couldn't help but make a playful comment, "And to think that idiot Zoro has become an alcoholic. What's the problem? Sake is really good." Luffy chimed in cheerfully, drinking from another barrel nearby. However, Kuina couldn't let the opportunity pass and complained again, "Great, the captain is an alcoholic too. Woof. Woof. Sharky." However, the relaxed atmosphere was abruptly interrupted when the group's pair of pets, the shark and the dog, began to express their displeasure with barks and growls. Zoro, curious, asked, "Why are they so mad?" "Ha ha ha ha, it's because I ate most of the food." Luffy proudly replied, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Although he didn't consume food with the same voracity as the original Luffy, his body still required a significant amount of food to maintain his manatee form. His insatiable appetite was a notable characteristic, and his joy at the meal was evident on his face. Kuina watched the scene with a perplexed expression, not surprised to see that the captain was also a voracious glutton, just like his friends. "No surprise there, the captain is a glutton too," she muttered, somewhat lost in the midst of the gastronomic festival. Luffy laughed merrily, ignoring Kuina's observation. "He he 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 he. Don't worry, there's more food, Mary. Ask for more food," Kaya suggested with a warm smile, appreciating the lively interaction among her guests. However, the relaxed atmosphere was momentarily disrupted when Nami noticed Yamato eating raw fish. She exclaimed, leaving Mary behind and pointing with disbelief at Yamato's unusual meal. "Hey, why are you eating that raw fish?" Yamato looked at Nami and, with her mouth full, replied with a muffled voice, "It's Odin's favorite food." She picked up a piece of salmon and savored it. Nami was clearly perplexed. "Who?" Yamato tried to explain, but her mouth full of food made her words unintelligible. Hum. Nami shook her head, feeling frustrated with Yamato's lack of clarity, and then ignored her, turning her attention back to the food and the pirate group she had infiltrated. Meanwhile, Usopp was sitting alongside the animals, sharing stories and laughter with the group, despite his injuries, which had been properly bandaged after the intense battle. His eyes roamed the scene, absorbing the nuances and peculiarities of that eclectic group. Usopp couldn't help but notice the special dynamic that existed among these people and animals with such diverse personalities. The room was filled with an atmosphere of camaraderie and mutual respect. Despite their striking differences, they seemed perfectly in tune, like a true crew. It was hard for Usopp to believe that they had come together and formed this bond so quickly, in just a few days. "So, this is how crews are," Usopp murmured to himself, his voice almost a whisper as he reflected on what he saw. He looked at his own hands, which he observed with a glint of realization in his eyes. Those hands were witnesses to the changes that had occurred in the past few days. He had finally found the courage to protect what he considered most precious, a desire rooted in his childhood, which had led him to aspire to become a brave sea warrior. Now, he glimpsed the possibility that this dream was not as far off as he had imagined. Kaya waited for the opportune moment and, amidst the atmosphere of camaraderie that pervaded the room, she addressed everyone with words of gratitude and reflection. Her tone was gentle and cheerful, a contrast to the concerns that had haunted the village before. "You came to us like ill-intentioned pirates, but in the end, you saved our lives," declared Kaya, her voice filled with sincere appreciation, causing everyone to turn their attention to her words. Luffy, as always, responded with simplicity, as if it were a common occurrence in his hectic life. "It was nothing. At first, we came here to sell a ship. It was mere luck that we found someone with so much potential and a butler hiding his true identity." Luffy's unpretentious comment brought a smile to Kaya's face. She admired the casual way Luffy treated remarkable deeds, as if they were nothing more than everyday actions. However, the impact of Luffy's words did not go unnoticed by Usopp, who was still stunned by the idea that someone would believe so much in his potential, something that had seemed unattainable until then. Kaya was not about to let the gratitude go unexpressed. She made a surprising announcement, "Even so, all of this resulted in saving our lives. As a token of my appreciation, in addition to buying your ship, I intend to gift you with your own vessel." Kaya's generous gesture was even more striking, considering that Luffy and his crew had acquired their ship by stealing it from the navy. Her sincere words and the gesture of gratitude demonstrated how much she valued the help they had provided to the village. Luffy expressed a genuine smile, although his thoughts on the matter were a bit more complex than his initial reaction suggested. Initially, he had hesitated about Kaya's offer, considering that the merry-going was not originally designed for the challenges of the New World or sailing in waters full of similar dangers. He pondered the possibility of declining the ship and asking for money instead, with concerns that acquiring a ship that didn't perfectly fit their needs might end up being a burden, forcing him to abandon it in the future. However, a viable alternative soon emerged in his mind, thanks to the system that assisted him on his journey. An option where Luffy could pay for the ship's refurbishment with his points, shaping it and making it more powerful according to his needs. This prospect convinced him to accept Kaya's ship gladly. I accept, but I have one condition, I want to give the ship a name. Luffy announced, his voice filled with excitement. Kaya considered the suggestion, glancing at Mary, who nodded in approval. The governess soon clarified, the ship was completed yesterday, but due to the confusion caused by Kuro, we haven't had the chance to name it yet. I was planning to do so tomorrow, so the ship the young miss is offering still doesn't have an official name, and you'll have the privilege of naming it as you please. Luffy was pleased with the news. He wasn't interested in keeping a name like Mary Going or Sunny Go. Although there was nothing wrong with those names, they didn't match his personal style. He aspired to something more powerful and iconic, like Whitebeard's Moby Dick or Gold Rogers' Oro Jackson. The opportunity to choose the name for his own ship was a chance he welcomed wholeheartedly. Perfect. I'm looking forward to naming our ship, Luffy declared, radiating joy and anticipation. The celebration continued throughout the night, turning Kaya's mansion into a place of joy and celebration. The mansion was alive with laughter, animated conversations, and the echo of shared stories among the eclectic group that had gathered to celebrate the victory over Kuro and his gang. As the night advanced and the celebration banquet went on, Luffy and Zoro consumed numerous barrels of sake and other alcoholic beverages, showing little restraint. Their loud laughter and drunken antics stood out among the others as they competed to see who could drink more. While the party continued to be lively, Shirahoshi, the young mermaid, was enchanted by Kaya. The girl, who had lived most of her life in isolation and confinement, found in Kaya someone who understood and shared her life experience. She felt immediately drawn to Kaya's generosity and the warmth of her heart, which welcomed her as part of the celebration. The heroes of the day, exhausted but happy, shared stories about their adventures, funny memories, and details of the battle against Kuro and his gang. There was a sense of unity and camaraderie, as if they had formed an improvised crew for one night. Smiling and grateful faces filled the room, and the bonds that were formed that night seemed unbreakable. As the night neared its end, sleepy eyes replaced the lively gazes. The celebration finally came to its conclusion, and one by one, the participants bid their farewells and went to their rooms to rest. Luffy woke from his slumber in Kaya's mansion, finding himself ensnared in the warm embrace of Yamato, who was softly snoring in one of the guest rooms. With considerable effort, Luffy managed to free himself from Yamato's grip, still feeling somewhat taken aback by the unexpected gesture from the princess. He then focused on straightening his clothes, which had been wrinkled by the embrace. As he adjusted his attire, Luffy glanced out the room's window, observing the peaceful scene outside. His eyes settled on Usopp, who was walking in the mansion's yard with his bandages visible. The captain of the Straw Hat Pirates saw this situation as an opportunity to test the young sharpshooter's courage and determination, to determine if he would be a valuable addition to the crew. "Hey!" Luffy greeted, causing Usopp to jump in surprise at his sudden appearance. "Luffy!" Usopp nearly shouted in surprise. "I remembered that you were alone here and thought we could talk," Luffy said with a friendly smile. "Talk?" Usopp asked, curious, although he already suspected what it was about. "Yes, talk. I want you to join my crew. But I won't force anyone to enter it. However, I believe in you, Usopp. I'm sure that if you join us, you'll become a brave warrior, respected in every corner of this world. It'll be a challenging path, with trials and suffering, but I'm confident you'll overcome it all. If you accept, your dreams will come true." Luffy spoke with confidence, his faith in Usopp clear in his words. Usopp looked at Luffy with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "What if I'm not strong enough, Luffy? What will happen then? What if I'm just a burden to all of you?" Luffy responded with a calm smile, "Don't worry, Usopp. You're already strong, and I'm sure you'll become even stronger. We're here to support each other. No matter how tough it gets, we'll face it together. Plus, I've seen your courage. You stood up to Kuro to protect your friend, and now, you're willing to embark on an adventure with us. I believe in you, and I'm sure you'll be an amazing addition to our crew. So, what do you think?" Usopp reflected for a moment, recalling all the experiences of the past few days. It was a chance to pursue his dreams alongside reliable and strong people, like those he had crossed paths with. I want to join you," Usopp declared, overcoming his hesitation. He was determined to embark on this adventure and knew that, with that group, he could achieve his goals. "That's great!" Luffy celebrated, excited about Usopp's decision. "Now, we're officially crewmates. Get ready for many adventures, Usopp." Usopp smiled, feeling nervous yet excited. He was ready to face the challenge that lay ahead, confident that with his new friends, he could overcome it. Luffy's faith in him motivated him to give his all on the journey about to begin. System, crew, Usopp has joined your crew. Luffy opened a sincere smile when he saw the system notification confirming Usopp's entry into his group. That's great. Let's announce your entry to the crew during breakfast when everyone is gathered. Luffy suggested, and they went back inside the mansion. Luffy found the crew gathered in the mansion's kitchen, where each member was busy eating and drinking something. The wooden table was filled with food dishes, fruits, and juices, creating a lively atmosphere. Yamato was particularly visible, expressing her dissatisfaction quite audibly. You shouldn't have left the room, Luffy. You should have been resting, Yamato grumbled, eating a piece of fruit with a scowl on her face. Luffy, always in a good mood, ignored Yamato's comment and the questioning looks from some of the girls. With that, he continued to smile at Usopp, who was a little bewildered by the scene. Everyone, I have fantastic news. We have a new member joining us. Luffy announced with excitement, casting a warm glance in Usopp's direction. The news was received with enthusiasm and curiosity by all crew members, who looked at Usopp, awaiting a brief introduction, even though they already knew the boy. This is Usopp, the brave and courageous sharpshooter we met on Syrup Island, Luffy proudly introduced Usopp. He's incredible and will help us in our adventures. Welcome, Usopp. A new member. Shirahoshi exclaimed, her voice sounding like music to Usopp's ears. Woof. Chaochu barked cheerfully, making Usopp smile. Sharky. Sharky. Megalo also joined in the celebration, greeting Usopp with enthusiasm. Zoro greeted Usopp with a simple nod of his head, but there was a hint of recognition in his eyes. Ha ha ha, we have a new crewmate. Yamato expressed her joy with a warm smile, despite her earlier complaint. Nami and Kuina remained silent, observing the scene with neutral expressions, but they couldn't help but smile at Usopp's happiness. Kaya, seeing the warm interaction between the crew members, felt a twinge of sadness in her eyes, knowing that her friend was about to leave in pursuit of his dreams. However, Usopp's happiness was contagious, and she couldn't help but be happy for him. Thank you. I think, Usopp responded timidly, still processing the warm reception from his new crew. Luffy made the announcement with his typical enthusiasm, but with a touch of seriousness. Anyway, let's save the celebration for the ship. We're leaving as soon as possible, so I'd like Usopp to prepare his farewell and collect any equipment that is still useful from the fight against Kuro. Meanwhile, the rest of you should also get ready. I'll take care of business with Kaya and Mary here, Luffy communicated, making it clear that time was of the essence. Wait. Let me go with you. Nami quickly shouted, showing her eagerness to handle financial matters. Alright, you might be useful. Luffy thought for a moment and agreed to the idea of taking Nami with him. He knew that Nami had a talent for squeezing every bit of money out of any situation, and he didn't want to miss the opportunity to make the most of the people's generosity in front of him. Third-person POV. Syrup Village, East Blue. The atmosphere in Syrup Village, located in the East Blue, was filled with its usual morning weather. Mary opened a suitcase in front of Luffy and Nami, revealing its contents with a dramatic gesture. In the blink of an eye, the distance between Mary and the duo seemed to widen as he stepped back. Nami couldn't help but wear a mischievous demon-like smile. Even her hair seemed to come to life, forming two figurative horns on her head, emphasizing her cheeky expression, which Luffy noticed with an amused smile. I have to admit you're a great maid. Luffy praised the mischievous woman, his expression also brimming with joy. I'm a navigator, she protested, but Luffy disregarded her argument with a shameless smile. Before them lay a suitcase full of berries, the common currency in the world of One Piece. Luffy and Nami had just arrived at the port to negotiate for Buggy's ship after using the power of the Moa Moa no Mi to increase its original size for evaluation. Mary and Kaya, who were accompanying them, were left in awe when they saw Luffy pull out Buggy's ship from his pocket, and in a matter of seconds, Luffy turned it back to its normal size. The young man's astonishing ability didn't go unnoticed, leaving Mary and Kaya completely shocked. Recovering from the initial shock, Mary decided to inspect Buggy's ship inside and out, while the negotiations began. In the end, the deal netted them 30 million berries. Although the initial price was 25 million, Nami's cunning came into play. With her bargaining skills, she managed to squeeze an extra 5 million berries from the value, increasing the total amount to 30 million. Luffy was extremely pleased with the cat burglar's prowess. Now we're in really good shape, proclaimed Luffy, approaching the suitcase and unable to resist touching it, as if the berries contained therein were a tangible realization of his success. What? Not again! Nami screamed as she saw Luffy perform this action, recalling the last time he had acted similarly when all their wealth had vanished before their eyes. It was a nightmare she didn't want to relive. Before Nami could approach and prevent Luffy from going on, acting on instinct, she pounced on him. But the money disappeared again, just like in the terrible nightmare that still haunted her memories. Added 30 million berries to the store's balance. Store balance, 42 million. Luffy had spent a considerable amount of money in recent days, especially on Usopp's weapons, as nothing in those items was cheap. However, in the end, the investment proved to be worthwhile. No! Nami exploded, jumping on Luffy and grabbing him in anger, refusing to let him go. Why did you do that? Where the hell did the money go? Give it back, give it all back now! She screamed, tears of frustration rolling down her cheeks as she held Luffy tightly. Don't worry about it, the money was deposited into the crew's fund, Luffy said, while Nami's cheek was pulled by him. Crew fund? I deserve a share of that money. She protested, not releasing him. I can't give you the money right now, but I'll reward you later. I still have Buggy and Kuro's rewards to collect, and I plan to capture Krieg and Arlong's heads for their bounties, Luffy announced, silencing Nami the next moment. She let go of him and looked at him with a serious expression. Hey, are you really going to fight them? She asked, in a worried and curious tone. The last name that came from Luffy's lips was Nami's worst nightmare. Even after all the displays of strength by the man with the straw hat, her mind was reluctant to accept that he could face Arlong. Yes, any problem. Luffy raised an eyebrow, appearing defiant, but it was a fun moment for him. I heard they are the most powerful pirates in this sea, especially Arlong. Fishmen are considered to be 10 times stronger than humans, Nami warned, with a hint of concern in her voice. Nonsense, Luffy huffed, cutting her off before Nami could continue. I could raise Logtown to the ground in a day. I doubt a mere fishman could do the same. If they were that powerful, why would they be sailing in the weaker sea with a bounty of only 20 million? I've met and lived among pirates with bounties in the billions. It won't be a fishman with such a low bounty that makes me fear for my ambitions. Luffy said, his voice filled with seriousness and even a touch of anger. He detested being underestimated or pitted, he was the type who would rather face death than beg for his life. Luffy's words left Nami stunned. Not only by the anger in his tone but also by the astonishing information he shared. Laying waste to one of the biggest cities in this sea? Calling Arlong a mere fishman? A bounty of only 20 million? Knowing pirates with bounties in the billions? Not being afraid to pursue his ambitions. The words echoed in Nami's mind, deeply shocking her. She never imagined this man was so fearless, or that anyone could mock Arlong and his crew so easily. Maybe Nami began to think, but couldn't finish her thoughts. I don't know what your history with them is since you seem quite scared, especially about Arlong. However, based on the information I gathered in the past few days before our meeting, it seems that Arlong is just a pompous manatee. He brags about his strength, but in the end, he's just a tyrant who enslaves ordinary people with the help of the Naval Base 16. A tasteless joke, in my opinion. He doesn't even use his strength to kill people and prefers to use guns. What a joke. Luffy wasn't angry anymore, but his mocking tone was evident. Nami listened to all of this with a whirlwind of thoughts, clenching her hands and unable to formulate a response. Anyway, let's go find the others, Luffy said, not waiting for her, and began to walk towards the port to gather the rest of the crew. As Luffy walked away, the orange-haired girl dressed like a maid stayed in the room where Luffy had distanced himself from her, absorbed in her own thoughts. Luffy's words were challenging and full of conviction, and something about his confidence made her question her own beliefs. A small spark of hope began to grow in her heart. What if, against all odds, Luffy could fulfill his bold promise? Nami couldn't help but imagine a scenario where Luffy, with all his strength and determination, confronted Arlong and his crew. She visualized Kokoyasi village being liberated from the oppressive rule of the fishmen, the villagers finally regaining their peace and freedom. As Luffy set out to find his crew, Nami's hope grew. She was determined to uncover the truth behind Luffy's words and perhaps find a way to believe that he could be the answer to saving her village and achieving her own dreams. Outside the mansion, at the port, everyone was ready to board their brand new ship, the original Merry-Go. Let's head to the port and board our brand new ship. Luffy met up with everyone and led the way. Upon arriving, they were met with the peculiar ramhead-shaped ship, small and quaint, designed to accommodate the crew. However, Luffy already had ambitious plans to transform it into a powerful battleship, using all available parts. The only obstacle was the money needed to carry out this grand renovation. Is it true that Big Brother Usopp is setting sail? A child's voice echoed, full of excitement reached their ears. Big Brother is so amazing, exclaimed another voice, full of admiration. 3 children approached Usopp, who was packing his bags and the weapons left from the battle with Kuro. His rifle was visibly damaged, as was his pistol. He had organized his belongings in his house away from the village and was ready for the new journey into the unknown. As soon as the children heard about it, they ran to say goodbye to their old friend, eager for one last meeting before his departure. Yes, I, the brave Usopp, will become a fearsome warrior of the seas. Usopp announced, pointing to himself with a smile on his face. Even though he was still injured from the battle, Luffy dramatically accelerated his recovery process, providing him with a remarkable improvement in just one night. What would normally take months to heal, he could achieve in a matter of days, thanks to the power of his devil fruit. Let's all board, as there are things we need to do, and we're in a hurry, announced Luffy, urging everyone to head to the ship. And you too, kiss already, we're waiting on the ship, Usopp, Luffy added, catching Kaya and Usopp by surprise with this comment as he turned and walked away, interrupting the farewell moment they were about to share, to a rather embarrassed moment. Kiss, they both responded simultaneously, their faces blushing like peppers as they were taken aback by Luffy's unexpected suggestion. Hey, Luffy, I can't fit through one of these doors. Yamato complained, frowning with frustration since she was too tall for the ship's doors. Don't worry, I'll swap our current vessel for a marine boat when we're farther away from the island. We don't want trouble if they see us with a stolen military boat at the port, that could draw unwanted attention to the island as well. I'll make the swap as soon as we're far enough, explained Luffy, and everyone nodded, understanding the precaution. I'm ready, Captain. Usopp boarded with an announcement, showing determination on his face. Great, let's go. Lami is nearby since her Vivre card is active. We're going to meet her to deliver the new batch of captured pirates. Luffy proclaimed, his expression reflecting his determination to fulfill the mission. Speaking of which, Captain, where are the Black Cat pirates? Usopp couldn't help but ask, curious about the fate of his former enemies. They're here, Usopp-sama, Shirahoshi replied, presenting a small birdcage that contained the Black Cat pirates, now reduced to miniature prisoners. After this brief moment of clarification, Luffy used his power to speed up the ship, making it shoot off at high speed as they moved away from Syrup Village and set off for their next adventure. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. What name will you put on the ship, Captain? The first thing Usopp asked as they sailed away from their old island. I haven't decided yet, I'm torn between Stormfell, Black Pearl, Sea Overlord. What eye-catching names! Zoro remarked. I know, but I haven't figured out which one to choose yet, so I'll leave it to the readers of this fanfiction, Luffy murmured. Amazing! Yamato's eyes sparkled. Incredible, Usopp said in a trance. You guys don't even know what he's talking about. Zoro grumbled. Readers. Nami raised an eyebrow. And why are we in a fanfiction? Kuina crossed her arms in disbelief. What is a fanfiction, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked with curiosity. Woof. Sharky. Really, Chaochu-sama? Hey, listen anyway, the name of the ship was chosen by readers with the highest votes. The name will be. The name was chosen in Portuguese version, Black Pearl. The sky stretched in intense and clear blue, without a cloud in sight. The sun shone brightly, warming the land with its golden rays. The air was pure and fresh, free from any sign of pollution or haze. It was one of those rare moments when nature revealed itself in all its splendor, on a day of clear and bright sky, providing a sense of serenity and purity that soothed the soul. Birds flew gracefully through the firmament, leaving traces of shadows on the breathtaking landscapes, in perfect harmony with the beauty of the day. It was as if the sky itself smiled at the earth, illuminating it with its purity and radiant beauty. At sea, an imposing marine ship sailed alone, cutting through the waters with unwavering elegance. On the deck, a group of individuals lay, looking disoriented and defeated. Luffy, always quick with his solutions, switched ships, making the stolen marine ship increase in size. He took it out of a small box he had acquired in Kaya's mansion. Luffy found it safer to store his ships in that small box since he had the power to shrink them to the size of a marble and store them in his pocket. Once everyone moved to the larger ship, Luffy shrank the small ship, now named Black Pearl, to a minuscule size and stored it in the small pocket box again. On the ship's deck, Luffy turned into a ruthless general. He spared no one in training, imposing a level of rigor that challenged the endurance of his crew. His voice echoed, firm and challenging, as he watched each member fight under the increased gravitational pressure. Come on, is this all you guys can do? I was expecting much more from you, he shouted, his words filled with authority and determination. It's very hard, Luffy-sama, Shirahoshi muttered, but Luffy didn't relent. For me, it's quite easy, Yamato replied calmly, demonstrating unwavering determination. Zoro and Kuina were sweating profusely, but Luffy didn't give them a break. We aren't monsters like you and the captain. Zoro commented, recognizing the harsh reality of the relentless training. Chaozu whined like a defeated dog, but Luffy showed no mercy. He continued to encourage, challenge, and push his crew to the limit. Megalo, I hope you give your best too, he ordered, making no exceptions for the non-human members of the crew. And when it came to Usopp, Luffy didn't hesitate to show his indifference. You can't even lift a finger. I'll leave you like this until I'm satisfied with your performance, he stated, highlighting his determination to forge an elite crew, even if it meant not going easy on any of them in training. Shirahoshi, you have a great hidden power within you, I know you can do better than this, Luffy exclaimed, his voice conveying a mix of encouragement and challenge. Shirahoshi was in a state similar to Usopp, or perhaps even worse, as silent tears streamed down the young girl's face during training. However, Luffy had committed himself to make her powerful before they reached the new world, and he didn't plan to allow her an easy time during training. While everyone was on the ground, panting and exhausted, only he and Yamato remained standing, locked in a constant confrontation. Luffy occasionally interrupted the fight to provide words of encouragement and guidance to each crew member. He behaved like a true drill sergeant, commanding his subordinates with firmness and determination. There was no room for complacency, and his lack of mercy echoed through endless hours of grueling training. Luffy created 10 training categories with his crew. Gravitational push UPS. Under increased gravity pressure, all crew members perform push UPS to strengthen their chest, shoulders, and arms. Luffy encourages everyone to stay in shape, ensuring there is no let-up. Gravitational squats. Squats are performed to strengthen the legs and endurance. Increased gravity makes this exercise even more challenging, testing everyone's resilience. Deck runs. Crew members run on the deck under increased gravity, developing endurance and speed. Luffy makes sure everyone is giving their best. Combat training. Luffy, Zoro, and Yamato led combat training sessions, practicing fighting and sword techniques. Crew members are instructed to hone their skills and defend themselves under increased gravity conditions. Endurance training. To develop physical and mental endurance, crew members engage in resistance exercises, such as long-distance runs and high-intensity interval training sessions. Gravitational weightlifting. The strongest, like Luffy and Yamato, engage in weightlifting under increased gravity to further strengthen their muscles. Agility training. Agility exercises are performed to enhance reflexes and mobility, essential for the battles they will face in the new world. Climate resistance training. As part of their comprehensive training, crew members undergo training in extreme weather conditions, such as exposure to strong wind and rain, to prepare them for the unpredictable conditions of the sea. While all this was happening, Nami, still dressed as a maid, was on the sidelines, immersed in her own thoughts. Since they left Syrup Village, Luffy's words echoed incessantly in her mind, leaving her deeply reflective. Beyond the words, Nami began to notice something that deeply troubled her. Luffy didn't treat her the same way as the other crew members. She began to notice nuances in his behavior, a subtly distinct treatment, as if he saw her a little differently from the others, despite all the friendship and camaraderie. This perception squeezed her heart and created a sense of uncertainty. From a young age, Nami harbored a deep hatred for pirates, but watching this peculiar group made her question her own beliefs. They were a kind of crew she had never seen before, and that left a bitter taste in her mouth. She felt hurt and out of place, as even the other crew members didn't embrace her as a true nakama. Nami sighed softly to herself, sinking into her thoughts. Maybe it's because I joined the group with the wrong intentions, she murmured to herself, expressing self-criticism and reflection on her past actions. However, her brief reflection was interrupted by Luffy's energetic voice. "Maid, our training is over. Could you bring us some refreshing drinks?" called the captain, releasing the gravitational pressure imposed on the group. "Why yes." Nami replied quickly, but this time her voice carried a more dejected tone than anger. This did not go unnoticed by Luffy, who arched an eyebrow as he watched her walk away. He pondered in silence, was I too hard on her? Anyway, unless she comes to me and shows her true intentions and feelings, I'm not willing to ease the pressure. Not when it seems like, deep down, she just wants to steal from us. Luffy watched Nami's back with a thoughtful look, maintaining his firm and determined posture but also attentive to the complex situation involving the cat thief and his crew. After Nami brought some refreshing drinks, the crew began to relax. Everyone settled in, easing the tension after the grueling training. Kuina, while savoring some rice cakes that Nami had brought from the stock, commented, "We urgently need a cook. These rice cakes are good, but no one here really knows how to cook." Zoro nodded, adding, "And what about our next stop, Captain? Where are we going?" Luffy couldn't contain his excitement as he replied, "We're heading to the Baratai restaurant. I'm sure the perfect person for the job is there right now. And believe me, there's no chef like him in all the seas." His eyes gleamed with enthusiasm, already anticipating the next stage of his journey to strengthen his crew. Although Luffy knew he might have to beat up Sanji a few times to keep him away from his ladies, he still hoped to find a reliable and strong version of the cook. However, he was aware that the world they were in now could have caused unexpected changes in his companions. "I understand, but I don't think that will make a difference," Yamato commented beside Luffy, expressing a pragmatic attitude towards the situation. "Sure, you only eat raw salmon." Usopp joked comically, shouting at Yamato while she enthusiastically devoured pieces of salmon. "I'm just following the footsteps of my sacred book," Yamato replied, pulling a book from inside her bra, revealing her loyalty to the wisdom contained in its pages. Kuina, observing the book that accompanied Yamato when she summoned it, couldn't help but let out a amused grumble. I'm afraid to open that book, she murmured, giving a skeptical look at Odin's mysterious diary. Luffy thought that while Lamy had Beppo and Shirahoshi, Megalo and Yamato brought with them a diary that seemed to be an irreplaceable artifact in their lives for that woman. Oh! Oh! Chaochu barked, communicating in his canine language. Sharky! Megalo translated the message for his partner, using his ability to understand the language of dogs. An infectious laughter escaped from Shirahoshi's lips upon hearing Megalo's translation. Luffy, in turn, sighed, understanding what Chaochu was trying to communicate. Even Shirahoshi, who didn't directly understand the language of dogs, grasped the meaning through Megalo. However, the atmosphere quickly changed when Usopp, who had moved away from the group after eating a bit, reported a concerning discovery. He used a magnifying glass to observe the sea around, and suddenly exclaimed, Captain! A merchant ship is being attacked by pirates. Luffy's eyes narrowed as he looked in the direction pointed by Usopp. Although his vision was incredibly sharp, the distance made it difficult to distinguish details. However, he managed to perceive the rising smoke, a sign that some fire was occurring on that merchant ship, being attacked by a pirate ship. Excited at the prospect of acquiring new treasures, Luffy announced, let's move forward and see if we can loot a few more treasures. The crew's reaction was immediate. Even Nami, who had been lately disheartened, opened her eyes with joy at the possibility of gaining new wealth. Luffy quickly assigned tasks. Kuina, can you take the helm? Yes. Kuina promptly replied. Zoro, Usopp, and even Yamato fought recently. Shirahoshi, Megalo, and Chaochu are not ready for combat yet. I'll lead this fight, announced Luffy. He could have assigned Yamato to the battle, but he was eager to get into action himself. Suddenly, Luffy made a decision and announced, anyway, I'm off, goodbye, before anyone could respond. His wings and hair grew rapidly, transforming him into a winged figure, and he flew quickly towards the sky. As the only crew member with the ability to fly, he soared into the skies, determined to reach the battle before the arrival of the marine ship. With a shout, he activated his speed abilities, accelerating 30 times faster than normal, disappearing into the air as he flew towards the confrontation. The astonishing speed allowed Luffy to reach the ships in a matter of seconds. As he approached, he glimpsed the terrible scene before his eyes. The merchant ship was in shambles, with parts of it on fire and bodies scattered on the deck. It was evident that a massacre had occurred, as there were few survivors. They didn't stand a chance, Luffy murmured as he observed the desolate scene. He descended from the skies to examine the situation more closely. However, something caught Luffy's attention. He noticed that the supposed pirates attacking the merchant ship didn't look like ordinary pirates. They wore elegant clothes and black suits instead of typical pirate attire. Moreover, they were armed in an organized manner and seemed much more trained than a group of common pirates. Very strange. These clothes aren't typical of pirates. Why are they using a pirate ship? Luffy pondered, watching the black-suited armed men. Additionally, he noted that many victims, including civilians and soldiers, had been shot. This wasn't the typical action of common pirates. A theory began to form in Luffy's mind. He began to suspect that these pirates were actually disguised agents of the world government, conducting a secret operation. They were using a pirate ship as a facade to cover up their actions. This allowed them to sail without being challenged, as any marine ship that saw them attacking would believe they were facing pirates. Luffy realized that there were many agents on board, and almost all of them wore black suits and were armed with rifles. However, a tall man in a red suit and sunglasses stood out. He was speaking to a distant Den Mushi at the center of the merchant ship, while two men in white suits handed him a piece of paper and a chest. The man in the red suit was now communicating with someone on the other end of the line. As Luffy observed the scene, he noticed that there were only 2 living people on the merchant ship, a couple who were tied to a corner of the deck with chains. However, they were not in good condition, they appeared injured and frightened. Luffy watched the situation, thinking that he was about to embark on a new and exciting adventure. He wasn't exactly following the original Luffy's footsteps because something new and intriguing had unfolded before him. We have the key. Confirmed with the map as well, replied the man in the red suit through the radio. Very well, the government is finally after that key. We had no leads for the last 300 years, but the reports from our agents brought us to it in this sea. The voice on the other end of the Den Mushi was filled with enthusiasm. That's wonderful, Agent Sky. I'm sure your promotion from CP5 to a higher division is guaranteed, the same voice continued. I am grateful, but I'm just doing my, bang. Boom. Before Agent Sky could finish his sentence, the entire environment was engulfed in a sudden wave of heat and a deafening explosion. A shot echoed from the sky, catching everyone off guard. They barely had time to look up when the Den Mushi exploded in a burst of purple flames, catching everyone unawares. Agent Sky quickly looked up, alarmed, and recovered from his shock that lasted only milliseconds. Who? He shouted in anger. The operation was going so well until now, and suddenly, something unexpected happened, disrupting the mission. He spotted some kind of black angel hovering 50 meters from the site, in the air. Although belonging to a significant division of the world government, only a small group of the main cipher pole teams and the agents responsible for the Tenryuubitos were aware of Haki and had proper training. Agent Sky was not part of that group and had no idea of Luffy's approach as they carried out the mission. If Agent Sky had knowledge of the Lunarians, his first assumption upon seeing Luffy in the skies would have been that. However, he would be wrong. A devil fruit user, was his initial impression upon observing Luffy. The winged man grinned at all the government agents while holding a pistol pointed where he had shot with his chaos flame power. Both Agent Sky and the other agents in white and black suits, as well as the prisoners, looked at the new winged man, completely dumbfounded. Can I join in on this fun too? Luffy asked playfully, his voice echoing throughout the area. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. Above the pirate ship's deck, with the vastness of the ocean stretching endlessly around, Luffy floated in the air, his shadowy wings casting a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the open sky. The ship beneath him swayed gently on the waves as he stared down at the government agents, frozen in a moment halted by the unexpected appearance of this mysterious figure. His black wings fluttered lightly, and his devilish grin widened as he observed the scene below. The government agents, dressed in their black and white suits, stood frozen like statues, their expressions a mix of shock and a hint of fear at the hostile arrival of this unknown being. The echoes of their interrupted conversation hung in the air, their radio communication cut off by the chaotic flames of Luffy. With a pistol in hand, still emanating the hues of purple fire from his mythical Zoan powers, Luffy approached them with a playful yet menacing tone. I think I'll join the fun too, hi. His voice resonated throughout the area, a dark melody that intrigued and terrified those who heard it. The red-suited agent, identified as Sky, glared at Luffy with anger and disbelief, his composure shattered by the sudden intrusion. The other agents and prisoners on the ship watched in stunned silence, their minds struggling to comprehend the emergence of this enigmatic figure with wings and flames. Who are you? Sky's furious shout echoed across the deck, breaking the brief silence that followed the destruction of his Den Mushi. Luffy hovered in the air, his shadowy wings gently flapping as he stared at the agent with a nonchalant yet piercing gaze. An ironic smile played on his lips, and his eyes sparkled with mischievous fire. I'm just a casual traveler, you know? Caught your ship having fun at the expense of another, but I can't help but notice, you guys are from the world government, right? I was surprised how you sent all those innocents to the other world, Luffy scoffed, his voice casually echoing in the air, each word hitting like a sharp arrow, amplified by the subtle manipulation of Moa no Mi commands. So, you know we're from the world government, and still, you continue with this arrogance? How dare you question the world government and interfere in its operations? The red-suited man roared, anger distorting his features as everyone around prepared for the imminent battle. I have no idea who you are, and you have no idea about the vital importance of this operation. But let me tell you one thing, you'll find your death here, and then we'll unearth all your background, eliminating every person associated with you. The agent's anger boiled in his words as team members pointed their rifles at the Luffy floating in the air. Oh? I must admit you have a special talent for ticking people off, Luffy commented with a light sarcasm, his voice flowing in a calm tone but carrying with it the promise of an impending storm. Luffy's hatred was visceral when it came to threats against his family and friends. Even knowing that the world government probably wouldn't launch an attack on Garp's acquaintances in the Goa Kingdom, the mere mention of such a threat was enough to ignite fury within him. Perfect. You just gave me more than enough reason to wipe all of you out, Luffy declared, his weapon pointed directly at the red-suited agent. The deck was about to become the stage for an explosive showdown between the Straw Hat and the dark arm of the world government. The brief tense silence was shattered by a series of consecutive explosions as Luffy fired his still-pointed gun, pulling the trigger toward the ship below. Bang followed by boom, bang, and again boom. The resounding sound of explosions echoed through the deck of the commercial and pirate ship, creating a chaotic symphony that filled the air. Bang, an explosion rang out as Luffy's pistol found its target, sending one of the agents flying backward. Boom, another roar echoed as the pistol fired again, hitting the next target and scattering debris on the deck. Bang. Boom. Bang. Boom. Bang. Boom. Bang. Boom. Bang. Boom. Bang. Boom. Luffy always had an affinity for firearms, and this was clearly reflected in his new arsenal in this world. In addition to his naturally powerful physiology, he had incorporated the use of firearms into his fighting style, complementing his abilities with a pistol. The power of chaos flames associated with the pistol dramatically enhanced his ability to perform quick and precise attacks. He hunted down world government agents as if they were prey, each shot a sentence of condemnation. His serious expression contrasted with the fluidity of his movements, demonstrating unmatched dexterity. The agents, unprepared to face Luffy's fury, desperately tried to dodge but seemed powerless against the overwhelming force of the Straw Hat. Pop pop! As explosions echoed in the air, Agent Sky, skillfully using the Jeppo technique, glided through the air as if walking on the ground. Being a member of CP5, he was proficient in some of the 6 styles. Grab the Den Den Mushi and report our situation. Call for reinforcements, as this unknown man is dangerous. Agent Sky ordered, aware of the threat they faced. Luffy had decimated several of his colleagues using the pistol's flames, reducing them to ashes in an instant. Luffy heard the orders and aimed his pistol at the men rushing toward the pirate ship. His agile and precise movements denoted the experience of someone who mastered the use of a firearm. Bang bang bang! The shots pierced the air, hitting targets with lethal precision. The heat of the flames enveloped the bullets, causing devastating havoc on the world government agents. Another dozen men fell on the pirate ship's deck, their lives taken by Luffy's unparalleled skill with the pistol. With each shot, chaos intensified, turning the deck into a battlefield where the world government faced the burning fury of the Straw Hat captain. Damn! Come on, are you going to let me kill all your men? Luffy taunted, keeping his distance while challenging Agent Sky. With no options left, Agent Sky forced his Jeppo, swiftly approaching Luffy in the air. As he headed in his direction, he executed a spin, unleashing a Rankyaku cut toward his enemy. The cutting blue energy swiftly flew toward Luffy. With a beat of his wings, he agilely and gracefully dodged the attack, leaning to throw a punch at the opponent who was already close at that moment. Before Luffy could strike, however, Agent Sky proved to be faster. Closing in, he tilted his finger, launching something against his opponent. Shiken. Luffy skillfully dodged the attack at the last second but was doing so on purpose. Even losing his own attack, he dealt with the situation effortlessly. That attack is quite powerful, I envy that. I wish I had those techniques too, Luffy murmured, watching the supposed attacker grit his teeth after hearing his comment. Do not take this fight so lightly. He shouted, quickly rushing at Luffy with his sharp finger. Sheeeth sound of cutting wind. Sheeeth. 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 Bang. Sheeeth. Bang. Sheeeth. Sheeeth. Bang. While Luffy dodged Agent Sky's sharp blows, he took advantage of the time and carefully aimed between dodges, shooting anyone on the pirate ship trying to reach the Den Den Mushi. How can you be so strong? There's no record of someone like you in the weaker sea, Agent Sky expressed a shadow of perplexity in front of Luffy. He realized that this young man had been playing with him all along. Someone with such power shouldn't be there, as cipher pole missions were conducted meticulously. He himself, chosen for a mission of utmost importance, should be the most powerful in this sea, and this unknown presence challenged all expectations. Clenching his teeth, Agent Sky resolved to switch to a different strategy. If you stop interfering with this operation, the government will not only allow you to leave but will also ensure a generous reward. Agent Sky tried to persuade, realizing that he wouldn't be able to defeat the individual in front of him with traditional methods. He was dealing with a wild card in the East Blue. After threatening me and mine, I don't care if you're from the world government, the Marines, one of the 4 emperors, or the Revolutionary Army. Even if I become the enemy of everyone and the most hunted man in this world, I don't plan to bow my head when my people are threatened or harmed. Luffy spoke with a cold voice, wasting no more time in that fight. With a beat of wings, he prepared to fly and deliver a punch against Agent Sky. Seeing this, Agent Sky quickly crossed his arms, applying the iron body technique. Tekai. Luffy's punch hit Agent Sky in midair with overwhelming force, creating a shockwave that expanded through the airspace. The thunderous sound of the impact echoed through the sky, reverberating like thunder on the horizon. Agent Sky, the target of Luffy's explosive power, felt something he never imagined before. At the moment of impact, Agent Sky's body seemed to defy the laws of physics, flying like a cannonball through space with an erratic trajectory toward the pirate ship. The scene was almost surreal, with Agent Sky exploding a part of the ship with his own body. Crack! The sound of the impact echoed across the ships, reverberating like thunder. Mr. Sky! The remaining agents shouted in desperation, watching their leader being thrown like an unguided projectile. Worry and fear mingled on their faces. Luffy wasted no time and flew toward that hole, cutting through the barrier of astonished agents. Boom! Upon landing, he triggered a controlled explosion, wanting to avoid unnecessary attention. His focus was entirely on the fallen agent, aware of the danger he represented if he called for reinforcements. He wanted to attract as little attention as possible before entering the Grand Line. With dust hanging in the air and shards scattered, limiting visibility inside the ship, Luffy surveyed the area for any movement. Aware that his initial attack might not have been lethal, he remained vigilant. It was when, amid the dust, the agent suddenly emerged, using the Soru technique to appear in front of Luffy. Shiken. The agent's finger shot out quickly, connecting with the region of Luffy's chest where his heart rested, initially deeply surprising him. However, to the horror of the agent, the finger did not pierce Luffy's tough skin barrier. Wow, that was a slip on my part. Not having observation haki is really a disadvantage, and I'm taking it quite arrogantly. I could be seriously injured if it weren't for my powerful body, Luffy murmured as he observed the spot where the finger was connected to him, speaking calmly as if the other party hadn't just tried to kill him seconds before. That's impossible. What kind of monster are you? Agent Sky lost composure, unable to believe what his eyes were witnessing. He had never seen someone resist that assassination technique, especially without using haki or even Tekai. If you had powerful haki, the story might be different. Even with my body being strong and having potential, it's still not as developed as Kaido's or Big Mom's, Luffy commented, leaving the man even more stunned. Who are Kaido and Big Mom? How can this kid speak so casually about these names as if they're known here, in the East Blue? He exclaimed in his mind. Anyway, I'm going to kill you, Luffy spoke casually. He wouldn't let this agent leave alive, especially a man who threatened his acquaintances like this. I just hope to find some manual of the 6 styles on this ship. So, I guess this is goodbye, Luffy spoke calmly, pointing the pistol at the man and using his flames to simulate a bullet. Bang! Soru! Bang! Wow! This technique is really amazing. You still managed to escape the first shot. Luffy couldn't help but praise, surprised at the agent's ability to escape even at point-blank range. Ah! Damned! Ah! After all my efforts. Ah! I was so close. Ah! Why? Why did you have to appear now? He growled as if the world were committing the greatest injustice against him. Breathless, the agent had a wound above his heart, bleeding and burning. He might have escaped the first shot to the head, but Luffy followed him as he executed Soru and shot again, hitting him. Is this injury hurting you a lot? Luffy casually asked and continued. Don't glare at me with so much hatred, I'm just curious to understand a bit more about the effects of chaos flames, as you're the only one who survived after being hit by them. Luffy ignored the hateful expression of the agent and continued with his investigation. In addition to being the most intense flames among all devil fruits, they have a corrosive effect. I doubt you'll live for much longer now. Ah! I may die here today, but I realized that whoever you are, you're a threat, and I'll at least destroy you. Ah! Here! He said through gritted teeth. Quickly, without giving Luffy a chance to react, the agent grabbed a box next to him and opened it, revealing various devices. This made Luffy's eyes widen instantly. Even without exactly understanding what it was clear that they were explosives or some kind of dynamite. Die! Agent Sky shouted, pressing a button in the center of the box, not giving Luffy the opportunity to escape. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. We're almost there. Zoro said, eager to join the fight as soon as possible, despite having faced opponents a few days earlier. Are they really pirates? I've never seen pirates dress like this, Nami commented, observing how organized this group's uniforms were. Weird, they're waving at us too, as if they've glimpsed some hope, looking very happy about our approach. Usopp scratched his chin, perplexed. Maybe Luffy made friends with them. And they want to welcome us. Yamato concluded after pondering for a moment. Ow! Sharky! Megalo said that Chaochu-sama heard something like this, it's the navy, we have reinforcements. Shirahoshi informed. So clearly, they're not our friends, Kuina commented the obvious. I wonder what Luffy did to them, Nami pondered. We're on a navy ship, what did they expect? I just wonder why pirates seem so happy about the navy's presence. I think Nami is right, Usopp reasoned. Anyway, let's find out soon, Zoro said, eager to approach and understand what was really happening there. What happened to Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked, expressing a bit of concern. I saw him descending forcefully onto that pirate ship, breaking everything with his landing. He was flying and fighting with someone using Jeppo, Yamato reported. Jeppo? What's that? Kuina questioned. It's a technique used to walk in the air. Some members of my father's pirate group could use it after copying some marines. Yamato explained. A technique that allows walking in the air. Zoro became quite curious and surprised at this revelation. Is your father also a pirate? Nami asked, surprised. Yes, that old bastard. I can't wait to go back to Wano and kick his ass along with Luffy. Yamato replied without looking at Nami, keeping her eyes on the ships ahead. No matter what kind of technique the enemy uses, Luffy can't lose to anyone in the East Blue. Usopp asserted with conviction, and most nodded in agreement, while Nami watched in amazement. Ow! Ow! Sharky, Sharky! He, Chaochu said that you became so convinced that Luffy-sama is so powerful after spending time with him in the last few days, Usopp-sama. Shirahoshi chuckled timidly at the dog's joke. It's not just that. You've seen his strength, he's a monster. He is, and the most surreal thing is that Yamato is even stronger than the captain, Zoro couldn't help but murmur. There was never a clear winner in the sparrings between Luffy and Yamato, but Zoro could feel that the white-haired woman was holding back all the time. What? Usopp couldn't believe it. Really? Is she even stronger? Nami couldn't help but be amazed. Since Luffy himself claimed that he could destroy Logtown in a day and didn't seem to be lying, the question now is, if Luffy can do that, can Yamato be an even worse monster? She has horns, so she's not so human, Nami told herself. Anyway, we're getting close, so let's wait for Luffy to appear before taking any action, Kuina concluded as they approached the ships. The situation was under control, but abruptly a flash tore through the night's silence, radiating from the pirate ship and enveloping both the pirate vessel and the commercial ship. The flash was followed by a deafening blast, shaking the air around and causing the explosion's impact to echo across the ocean. What? Lu. Captain. Luffy-sama. Ow. Captain. Sharky. Before they could articulate anything else, the force hit the navy ship, unbalancing everyone on the deck. Watching the raised explosion, Yamato wasted no time and jumped off the ship, freezing the ocean just below her. Although this left everyone stunned, Zoro followed suit quickly, leaping off the ship, while Shirahoshi flew to the boats with Megalo in desperation. The commercial ship was still partially intact, as the explosion also hit them. Most agents were dead now, leaving only a few hostages and survivors. During this chaos, one agent managed to reach the reserve Den Den Mushi and made a call to request reinforcement. He hoped that the monster would be killed along with the impact. We need reinforcements. We've been attacked by an unknown individual. The agent shouted, seeking assistance for the unfolding chaotic situation. However, Luffy's notoriety hadn't reached everyone yet, as his bounty had been revealed only a few days earlier, and the occupants of the ship weren't particularly interested in a simple pirate with a 10 million bounty. But there's a navy ship approaching right now. A mermaid. The man holding the Den Den Mushi, transmitting information, was surprised to see the 1.7-meter mermaid princess flying with her air bubble above the ship, looking for Luffy. Luffy-sama. She shouted, waiting for some response, stunning all the present who were still alive. A mermaid. The voice from the Den Den Mushi expressed surprise. While the man communicated with the snail phone, still stunned by the sight of the mermaid princess, his consciousness suddenly blanked out when a weapon struck him before he could react. Agent, what's happening? What was that noise? Explain the situation to me, Pop. Yamato didn't wait for answers from the agent or anyone else. Her main concern was Luffy's condition, and she began searching through the wreckage after destroying the Den Den Mushi. My Luffy! Yamato shouted when she felt Luffy's presence among the debris. The pirate ship no longer existed. Everything was a chaos of fire and pieces of wood scattered across the ocean, but her haki still indicated that Luffy was alive and seemingly well. Wow, that explosion almost got me hurt, such a strong explosion. A voice was heard, leaving Yamato and Shirahoshi relieved. Our ship was nearly destroyed, luckily, I managed to put my hand in my pocket to protect it, covering the small object, Luffy continued murmuring. Amidst the flames, a man with wings appeared for everyone. The navy ship arrived at the scene, while the surviving government men trembled at seeing their assailant unharmed. The members of the Straw Hats sighed in relief, but the girls in the group changed their expressions when they looked more closely at Luffy. Ah! Shirahoshi was the first to scream, covering her eyes but keeping one eye exposed between the fingers on her face. Luffy wondered why Shirahoshi was acting like this. He was sure he wasn't injured or anything while flying. My Luffy, you're naked, Yamato said, with a blush on her cheeks. Put some clothes on. Nami shouted from a distance, with a red face. And do it quickly. Kuina added, equally red. But none of the girls seemed able to avoid looking at Luffy naked, while Zoro, Usopp, Chaochu, and Megalo just checked that Luffy was okay and turned their attention to finding any enemies. However, most of the enemies were killed in the explosion, leaving only a few that Yamato and Zoro knocked out when they arrived on the commercial ship. Ah, this. Ha 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 ha, I didn't even notice. Luffy laughed awkwardly, then landing on what was left of the commercial ship and entering a cabin with a few flames. Quickly, he summoned the same clothes he had acquired last time through the system as he entered one of the rooms. Ready. Sorry about that, I just didn't realize when my clothes were disintegrated, Luffy said, scratching his head. He wasn't an exhibitionist, but his nudity went unnoticed. Anyway, I almost got caught in the explosion. Who would have thought there was such a large amount of explosives on the pirate ship used by the government, Luffy commented, looking at the now destroyed ship's wreckage. My luck was using the Moa Moa no Mi 30 times to increase my hardness and defense. That enhanced my body even more, preventing me from being injured during the explosion. Luffy spoke casually, explaining his peculiar technique to everyone. It's a shame that ship was destroyed. I had some hope of getting some CP training manuals, but now it's a distant wish, Luffy lamented, looking at the floating debris. CP? Nami asked curiously. Yes, these men are agents of a powerful group from the world government, Luffy replied to the navigator as his eyes fixed on the 8 agents still alive but unconscious on the destroyed ship. Anyway, I want to find out why they attacked this commercial ship, Luffy said, pointing a finger at the still-bound couple in the corner of the boat. Without wasting any more time, Luffy approached the couple. The couple, tied in the corner of the ship, portrayed an everyday scene amidst adversity. The middle-aged man exhibited a bald head and a substantial beard, his eyes reflecting surprise and relief at the unexpected rescue. Beside him, the woman, with short brown hair, conveyed a mixture of courage and concern, her eyes revealing gratitude for having survived the chaos that unfolded around them. Despite the handcuffs and chains that kept them prisoners, they shared a bond that suggested a story built over time, as Luffy perceived. Yo! Luffy snapped the couple out of their stupor. Hello, sir. My name is Kirti. Thank you for saving our lives. We'll reward you for this. The man quickly said, with the woman beside him. Well, I'm Monkey D. Luffy. If you want to thank me, you can start by telling me why you were being targeted by a group like Cypher Pole. Luffy got straight to the point, burning the handcuffs and chains that held the couple with his flames, without hurting them. He calmly waited for a response, with the other Straw Hats grouping behind him to listen as well. Feeling relieved, the man and woman looked at them with a grateful gleam. I thought we were going to die. I never imagined such a sudden turnaround, thank you, the man couldn't help but comment in relief, looking at Luffy. Anyway, we were targeted because my wife here had in her possession a key and a map belonging to her old family. Something that passed from generation to generation. When we finally decided to unravel the mystery, we went after the treasure located in this sea according to the map, but we were ambushed without our guards being able to react. They were all killed quickly without being able to react, leaving only me and my wife alive for them to gather information from, the man explained, revealing the reason for the attack. It was after that that you found us in such a bad situation. The key and the map were quite precious to the Garen family, but we never thought the world government was targeting us for it. There should have been some of them contacting us when my dear wife and I announced and called the men for this journey, the man lamented his luck. And where are you guys from? Luffy couldn't help but ask. To his surprise, it wasn't the man who answered. Instead, the woman spoke for the first time. Ixi hen se casta south, Ixi kezir najat georagan bisa yupa treasure bona isa isar rebagon re nuhalente hen generation najat generation, kirimvos syt saved ilva lives, nike thought nuhavals iris se nike sia jair najat morgul jagan, sir emma nuha kirimvos. The woman began to speak, and her husband looked at her with appreciation while the crew fell into silence. What the hell did she say? Everyone exclaimed internally. No one understood this woman's language, and she seemed to expect them to comprehend. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. I see, Luffy was the first to break the silence, even without fully comprehending the woman's mysterious words. Clearly, you don't understand. Everyone exclaimed, looking at the captain with astonished expressions. As my wife Marta said, this map and this key only brought trouble. We don't want to be involved with it anymore. I was just a trader who lived well in the South Blue. I doubt we can go back to our old life now, the man expressed with regret. Luffy could understand him. He also doubted that the world government would let them go unscathed. If they knew the operation failed and the couple still held these valuable items, they would be continuously hunted. Ha kirimvos, Costa emagonziri, Nike don't jalogan najat involve nuhavals iris se Nike espisa dombo. The woman resumed her words, and Luffy just stared at her, not knowing how to respond. You're right, my love. It's better not to get involved anymore. So, as a token of gratitude, you can keep the items, the man beside her affirmed. Wait, you're just giving them to me like this? Luffy raised an eyebrow, showing surprise. Of course, he was curious about what was in that chest, but receiving the items so easily was unexpected. Not that he was going to leave with nothing, he already intended to have some possessions from here. We can't have these anymore. Our friends are among the dead bodies on this ship. So many deaths. Look around, many of them were our acquaintances, and they died like slaughtered animals, without a chance to fight back. Do you think we can live with these items that will make us targets on our backs? I won't even be able to go back home now, the man named Kirti vented, expressing the tragedy that had befallen them. Luffy remained silent for a moment, absorbing the man's words. Then, he sighed and said, if you're determined not to be involved with this anymore, I accept the items. But before that, explain to me what exactly these maps and keys are, better than before, and why the world government is so interested in them. The couple exchanged glances, and seeing that Luffy was genuinely interested, they began to explain the story behind their family's belongings. They detailed how these objects passed from generation to generation, recounting the history of an ancient lineage of explorers and hidden treasures. As they spoke, the couple revealed the peculiarities and mysteries behind these artifacts. Luffy listened attentively, understanding the importance of these items to their family and how they ended up becoming targets of the world government. When the explanation came to an end, Luffy nodded and said, "Got it. If you're willing to hand over these items to me, I accept. But know that I'll do what's in my power to ensure you can move forward without further worries." "You're right, I don't think the government will let this slide. It would be better for you to disappear from everyone's sight with your old name and get a new identity," Luffy spoke bluntly, sure that the world government wouldn't let this go either way. The couple looked at Luffy with gratitude in their eyes. The man then pulled out a small, intricately decorated wooden chest with a kind of amulet attached, along with the map taken by Sky. "This is the real key, and these are my wife's family belongings. May they bring you what you desire." Luffy took and looked at them. "Can we give you a ride to our next stop? Do you have any money?" Luffy asked again. "We do, at least we had 300 million berries since I knew this trip was dangerous. I took my savings to bring along, just don't know if they're still intact with the explosion," the man warned, and Nami practically jumped with this information. 300 million! She couldn't believe this information. While only Kuina, Usopp, and Chaochu seemed stunned by this amount, the rest of the crew didn't seem very interested in money, no matter how much gold. "Anyway, I'll first see what's in the chest." "Nami, do you want to grab the gold?" Luffy said, approaching the mysterious red chest, while the maid-dressed woman with a mop in hand jumped with bright and passionate eyes at these words. Luffy took the key and went to the chest with the map. As the couple stepped away, he opened it while spying on all the objects with curiosity. The old map clearly showed the east blue and pointed to an island, although not so updated. The key was ornamented in a triangular shape, and some documents inside the chest. Luffy examined them with interest, imagining what adventures, treasures, and mysteries might await him. "So, this is the key, looks pretty old," Luffy couldn't help but comment as he turned the talisman, which was the key, from side to side, inspecting it carefully. "That's strange. Where's the gold? Is this not a treasure chest?" Nami complained beside. "Did you not go to get the treasure inside the ship? How can you be so fast?" Luffy was alarmed at this speed. "I've already collected everything and inspected the entire ship to make sure nothing's missing. I even counted the money 3 times in that time, it's 306,599,100 berries." Nami said, looking for any sign of gold in that chest. "What the hell?" Luffy still complained, this woman had cheats when it came to money. "There may not be gold, but there's certainly a treasure waiting for us," Luffy commented with joy. "Treasure?" Nami couldn't help but shout happily. "A new adventure!" Shirahoshi exclaimed excitedly with anticipation. "New enemies!" Zoro said, opening a smile. "A chance for me to prove that I'm a brave warrior." Usopp was excited, his wounds were better after Luffy applied the power of the Moa Moa no Mi, so he wanted to see the result of his hellish training like Zoro. Not everyone spoke, but they had their own expectations for this treasure hunt. "Alright, everyone, let's first get organized. As soon as we reach Baratai, we'll plan to search after that," Luffy commented and continued. "First, let's go back to our ship, then we'll set sail." Luffy concluded, carrying the chest to the marine ship. "And these men?" Kuina asked, seeing some men still unconscious. "Leave them there. They executed civilians just by orders from their superiors. I won't stain my hands with the blood of unarmed men, but I don't intend to show mercy either," Luffy said without looking back. Nodding, Kuina and the others followed him closely behind with the couple and Anami carrying bags of berries. "You're on a marine ship?" The man, Kirti, asked curiously. "We stole it," Luffy casually commented, leaving the man stunned. "Ziri Ixos Ia Gaviloger, Ao stole Siri." The woman martyr responded. "My love, you shouldn't say that," the man said to the mystery of all listeners. Ignoring the woman and her unknown words anyway, Luffy asked everyone to take positions for the ship to depart on its original route. A day later, in the ship's treasury, Luffy and Nami were in front of the money. The ship's maid followed him like a rat on the last day, hoping that the captain wouldn't make the money disappear like the last few times. Now she was stuck to him with her legs closed around his waist, pulling his cheeks. She tried to restrict his movements, but Luffy's monstrous strength didn't even care about the woman clinging to his body. "No! Don't make this money disappear!" Luffy heard Nami crying as he stood in front of the treasure. Luffy smiled at her. Deep down, he liked this mischievous woman with her ambition for money. "What's wrong? This treasure belongs to the Straw Hats, we need it to improve our ship, and afterward, I don't intend to take all the gold. I'm not so greedy as to leave those people like that after everything that happened," Luffy commented, and Nami looked at him for a while. You don't seem so bad, she couldn't help but comment. I'm an ambitious man and often bad, but I have my limits. I'm already satisfied with the map, key, and about 100 million of this gold. Luffy commented to no one in particular. Nami looked at Luffy's words, letting all her greed for money disappear. She had been thinking about her life and them in the last few days. Luffy, let me ask you. Do you see me as your nakama? She asked cautiously. And are you really one of us? Luffy raised an eyebrow. She didn't know what to answer. Listen, Nami, I know you're a great navigator, Luffy commented. You knew all this time? Nami couldn't help but exclaim. Of course, I knew, but I'm not interested in having someone who isn't trustworthy as one of us. Your intention was never to be a part of the group, Luffy looked serious at her. Then why am I here? You just wanted to laugh at me when you made me your maid. Nami couldn't help but ask bitterly. Because I wanted to see your attitude, I know you have your problems, but you don't trust the group to try to help you, and I don't want someone on the crew who doesn't trust us or vice versa, Luffy sighed as he focused on the money to make it 100 times smaller. Nami didn't seem to care about it after hearing Luffy, choosing to stay silent. I thought that if you spent some time sailing with us, you might trust us enough to help you with Arlong. Luffy began to walk out, leaving the lone cat burglar in the room. Nami was shocked by these words, torn between asking for help or not. Deep down, she was afraid that Arlong would not only kill the group but that the fishmen would take it out on her village, which she had been trying to free for years. She clenched her fists, looking down as she heard Luffy move away without looking back. Luffy, wait, Luffy stopped as soon as he heard the slightly teary and nervous voice. If I asked you for help, would you be willing to risk your life and theirs to solve my problems? She asked in the same tone. What are you talking about? If it's about Arlong and his group, I can handle them alone, silly girl. I may not be a fishman, but I'm not an ordinary human either. In fact, I'm a monster. Luffy smiled with that declaration. Leaving Nami stunned, she clenched her hands and spoke again. Would you help me destroy the tyranny of Arlong in Kokoyasi village and the nearby islands? She asked calmly. How about I answer you with another question? Luffy sighed and continued. Are you willing to truly be a part of this crew? What I intend to do sailing the seas will shock the entire world. I don't intend to be a Gold Roger, I'm more like a Rox D Zebek at sea. Maybe the whole world will be my enemy in the coming years, but I know I'll have a group that supports and trusts each other like a family, and they're willing to fight against all enemies. Arlong will be a flea compared to what you'll face. Luffy stopped and looked at the girl without words and continued. Of course, the greatest navigator in the world is welcome here. So, I ask you, Nami, are you willing to embark on an adventure that will bring dangers thousands of times worse than Arlong? Are you willing to bear the burden that the whole world may be your enemy in the coming years, having only your crewmates to move forward with so many enemies? I won't force you, and in any case, I'm going to Kokoyasi village to take the heads of Arlong and Commander Rat at base 16, whether you like it or not. But if you're still willing to join us, I'll make you feel like family and strengthen you to the point where you see Arlong as an insect from your past. Luffy didn't hide his intentions. Enemies thousands of times worse than Arlong? Being an enemy of the whole world? Getting so strong that Arlong is seen as an insect. Nami didn't know Rox D Zebek, but she understood the weight of Luffy's other words. She couldn't imagine living with the whole world as her enemy. But looking at Luffy's determination as he started talking to her, their eyes met, and she couldn't see any degree of hesitation in them, as if he had been expecting that storm to come. Is he really serious? That was a question that left her stunned. I'm willing to join your crew. She finally said after a few seconds of stunned silence. How could she not? This group was quite reliable, even with people so different and of other species with different personalities, she had no doubt that they were trustworthy after spending a week with them. With this group, I can fulfill my dream of saving Kokoyasi village and making the complete world map. She told herself. That's great, Nami. Welcome to the crew. Luffy had a big smile because finally, his navigator agreed to join the crew without betraying them first. System, crew, Nami has joined as a member of your crew. Finally, Luffy muttered, keeping the same smile. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. In the vast waters of the East Blue, beneath an expansive sky, the current Straw Hat crew occupied the Navy ship they had acquired. It was a day after the revealing conversation with Nami, and the atmosphere hummed with a mix of each member doing their own things in their free time, as Luffy had given everyone a longer break on this day. Zoro and Kuina, on the deck, dedicated themselves to their sword training. Calculated and precise movements indicated their intense focus as they continued to hone their skills. Closed eyes revealed deep immersion in the training. Nami, in the lounge, now officially part of the crew, was in her own room, immersed in maps and navigation instruments. Her focused attention on routes and coordinates demonstrated the seriousness with which she would begin playing her crucial role in the crew. Agile fingers traced lines on the maps as she planned the course ahead through the weaker sea routes. Usopp, in his workshop, worked on his weapons. His slingshot had been replaced by deadly weapons that Luffy handed to him with their manuals. These weapons were secret projects of the world government to enhance their strength in the future. Luffy acquired the designs and prototypes through some millions, but he didn't even come close to the real equipment, which were worth hundreds of millions or even billions. With Usopp now part of the crew and adapting to his new fighting approach, much deadlier than before, his expression revealed enthusiasm and passion as he explored new creations and refined his weapons. Skillful fingers shaped the crew's future. Shirahoshi and Megalo were on the deck, both watching the horizon and enjoying the sea breeze. The mermaid princess seemed fascinated by the vast ocean and the sight of the surface, while Megalo displayed a content expression. Chaochu, the loyal crew dog, was beside Yamato, both on the deck. Chaochu sniffed the air, taking in the new sea scents, while Yamato trained her skills with determination. The rescued couple, now free, was on the main deck, observing the crew with a mix of amusement in one of the chairs. Luffy let them do as they pleased, as long as it didn't interfere with the group's training. The man and the woman, still recovering from the shock of the turnaround in their lives, exchanged silent glances. The woman occasionally commented, but no one understood. While each crew member performed their individual tasks, the collective spirit of the Straw Hats permeated the ship. The atmosphere was charged with a unique energy. On the mast, Luffy sat, lost in his thoughts as he explored the system with a determined and curious expression. His gaze, fixed on the possibilities unfolding before the crew, as he closely examined a crew screen on the system. Crew. Monkey D. Luffy, Captain. Devil Fruit, Moa Moa no Mi, D/Icon no Mi, Model, Chaos Ifrit, D. Vitality, S. Strength, B. Defense, A. Speed, C. Spirit, B. House Hoku Haki, Locked. Voice of all things, Locked. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Yamato, Vice Captain. Devil Fruit, Inu no Mi, Model, Akoka no Makamai, B. Vitality, S. Strength, A. Defense, S. Speed, B. Spirit, A. Swordsmanship, B. Kanbun Shoku Haki, D. Busa Shoku Haki, C. House Hoku Haki, D. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Shirahoshi, no specific role. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, S. Strength, E. Defense, D. Speed, E. Spirit, S. Poseidon, Locked. House Hoku Haki, Locked. As a member of his crew, all her talents increase by 100%. Megalo, Pet. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, C. Strength, D. Defense, D. Speed, D. Spirit, D. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Zoro, Swordsman. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, D. Strength, C++. Defense, D. Speed, C++. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, Santorio, C. House Hoku Haki, Locked. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Trafalgar Lamy, Doctor. Devil Fruit, Op no Mi, C. Vitality, C. Strength, C. Defense, C. Speed, B. Spirit, C. Swordsmanship, D. House Hoku Haki, Locked. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Bappo, Assistant. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, D. Strength, E. Defense, E. Speed, E. Spirit, C. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Chaochu, Guard Dog. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, D. Strength, E-E+. Defense, E-E+. Speed, E. Spirit, E-E+. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Usopp, Sniper. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, E. Strength, E-E+. Defense, E-E+. Speed, D. Spirit, E. As a member of his crew, all his talents increase by 100%. Nami, Navigator. Devil Fruit, none. Vitality, E. Strength, E. Defense, E. Speed, E. Spirit, C. As a member of his crew, all her talents increase by 100%. System rules. The system's ranking level goes from letter E to X, with X being the mortal limit, understood within this classification from lowest to highest as listed below. E-D-C-A-SS-SS-X. The group is getting bigger, Luffy thought as he looked at all the information on the screen. Luffy originally left this sea with 5 members, now he has 10 members. With Kuina to join still, but I'm sure she'll accept in the end, and there's also Sanji if he's at Baratai. Furthermore, the only ones who increased their stats were Zoro, Chaochu, and Usopp. Even if it was in weaker stats, Luffy was still satisfied with it after training with them for a few days. Chaochu had the biggest evolution among them. He took 200 million of the money he got from the couple and put it into the system. He planned to leave them with 100 million to start over with a gift that would make them safer in case the government attacked them again. Closing the cruise screen, Luffy opened the shop screen. There were all kinds of things this world could offer, of course, with some rules. He couldn't take anything in someone else's possession. Imagine Mihawk's black sword disappearing from his back and ending up in the middle of the East Blue, or even with Shanks and Whitebeard's weapons, it would be too treacherous. Wait a minute, Mihawk must be in this sea now, Luffy murmured when he thought of that, but then thought that this should be a concern when he reached Baratai and focused his attention on the new list in front of him. Clicking on some options, he made his wish list in his cart. Upgrade and evolve a ship to level 2. Price, 500 million berries. Upgrade and evolve a ship to level 3. Price, 1 billion berries. World Government Manual, all techniques and details about Rokushiki by the High Government. Price, 2 billion berries. This is the world's largest Rokushiki manual, only the sacred knights are trained in this manual. World Government Manual, everything about observation haki techniques and training, detailed after hundreds of years by the High Government. Price, 2 billion berries. This is the world's largest manual on Kanbunshoku haki, only the sacred knights are trained in this manual. World Government Manual, everything about armament haki techniques and training, detailed after hundreds of years by the High Government. Price, 2 billion berries. This is the world's largest manual on Busashoku haki, only the sacred knights are trained in this manual. World Government Manual, everything about conquerors haki techniques and training, detailed after hundreds of years by the High Government. Price, 3 billion berries. Hidden knowledge of House Hoku haki and Mary Gorosei, which only a few people have trained in for hundreds of years for the World Government. World Government Manual, complete package everything about the 3 hakis techniques and training, detailed after hundreds of years by the High Government. Price, 5 billion berries. This is the world's largest manual on the 3 hakis, only the sacred knights are trained in this manual. Supreme Grade Sword, Ace. Price, 10 billion berries. Last used by Gold Roger, currently not in anyone's possession. Icon no Mi, Model, Phoenix. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Genderless of the Phoenix. Fire Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Garuda. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Female of the Garuda. Wind Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Rama. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Male of the Rama. Lightning Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Titan. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Male of the Titan. Earth Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Bahamut. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Male of the Bahamut. Light Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Shiva. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Female of the Shiva. Ice Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Odin. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Male of the Odin. Darkness Element. Icon no Mi, Model, Leviathan. Price, 5 billion berries. Mythical Zoan Female of the Leviathan. Water Element. Currently, he had only 240 million berries in the system. There was still an abyss to get the main things that this list could offer, which were in the billions, so Luffy could only plan what to buy when he had some money in the future, so he needs to behave like a pirate and loot those he deems worthy. Luffy closed the list after seeing what he needed and looked in one direction where the ship was sailing. There, a speedboat was coming towards the ship at high speed. Finally arrived, Lamy and Bappo, Luffy smiled. Author here, I created this shopping list for now, do you think the price corresponds to the real value? If you have suggestions or any criticism with the list, comment. I'm thinking of new fruits to put on the wish list, like a wind-type Logia fruit, among others. I hope for some more suggestions. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. Patiently waiting, all crew members and the recently rescued civilian couple gathered at the corner of the naval ship, awaiting Lamy's arrival. A speedboat with an empty raft followed closely behind, approaching the ship as soon as it came into view. Next to the Navy ship, Lamy executed her room ability, teleporting herself with Bappo and a suitcase full of money directly onto the deck. A smile lit up Luffy's face as he crossed his arms, welcoming his companion's arrival. You finally made it, Luffy commented, his smile revealing a hint of relief. I guess so. The marine base was quite a distance away, and the sailors asked a series of questions, as they always do, replied Lami, directing her gaze towards Luffy. I hope you guys are okay, Luffy added, expressing his concern before anything else. We're fine. In the end, we got the money and came back here, assured Lami, highlighting the success of the financial mission. We earned a considerable amount, Captain, announced Popo, his enthusiastic voice echoing through the group, and he finally noticed new faces on the ship. New people, exclaimed Popo, surprised to see unfamiliar individuals around the captain. A talking panda, exclaimed Usopp, displaying fascination like a member who hadn't seen the unusual creature before. Nike ve Dori undigen ia dines bona talks go, the woman spoke, capturing everyone's attention, even though no one understood what she really meant. I'm sorry. Popo said after hearing the woman. Wait, do you understand her? Curious Nami asked. No, Popo said, causing everyone to fall to the ground in disbelief. Then why is he apologizing? Usopp shouted. I see the crew has grown quite a bit in these days away, Lami said, raising an eyebrow after hearing the woman. Ixan de Uribagon re Kazir, Nike Idra de Ursitalibagon Najat se crew, Marta said, so only her husband understood, and everyone continued to ignore her. Some pretty weird ones, from what I can see, Lami murmured about the strange woman. After hearing Marta and ignoring her, Luffy turned his attention back to responding to Lami. It's true, but this couple doesn't belong to the group, we're just helping them until the next point. Luffy said calmly. I understand, said the tattooed woman. Anyway, rest a bit because I'll need you again in the next few days. We have a few more pirates for you to deliver to the Marines, Luffy said, and she stared at him for a while with raised eyebrows. Why am I surprised? Anyway, I can do that, but I don't want to fall behind the team. She warned while crossing her arms, knowing that with Luffy, the rest of the group would be training while she did these services. Don't worry, I want you to deliver this and 2 more batches of pirates in the future. After that, we're heading to the Grand Line. Once we've done everything we need here, I guarantee I'll personally train you enough to defeat any of your enemies. Luffy affirmed, as many looked at him with questioning eyes, as only Luffy and Lami knew about the agreement they made. Now that we're all gathered, let's take advantage and celebrate. How's our stock, Usopp? Luffy casually asked. Being a pirate, a routine of banquets among his crew was necessary whenever possible. Kaya gave us a supply for 6 months, and there are still many things in the Navy's stock, so we're doing very well, Captain. He affirmed. Great, let's drink and eat for the rest of the day. Luffy announced, and everyone smiled, liking the idea. Is the maid still in the group? Lami asked curiously next to Luffy, seeing Nami still with them and no longer dressed as Baby 5, since she saw how Nami had ulterior motives when Luffy recruited her. The doctor also knew that Luffy wasn't a fool to let this woman abuse them, so she believed that the captain would get rid of her on the next island. I'm not the maid anymore. Nami shouted with a comical face, listening to Lami next to Luffy. Don't worry, she's one of us now. After a serious talk, I trust her, and she's a great navigator. Luffy affirmed. The rest of the crew already knew this since Luffy's announcement yesterday, so they just nodded and trusted his decision. They changed their behavior and relationship with Nami as well, improving a lot and trusting her more after hearing her sad story, which she opened up to them. Nami was also amazed by each story told by her new nakamas. One was a prisoner of her father, another returned from the dead. Needless to say, the cat thief had a reality check. But the person in the group with whom Nami seemed to connect better was the young mermaid, who shared a similar story since both mothers were killed in front of them and understood that pain very well. Anyway, the Straw Hats spent the rest of the day eating and celebrating without their infernal training. Luffy wanted to give them some fun, besides strengthening them, they deserved a break from time to time. The next day, Luffy handed over the Black Cat Pirates bandits, along with Django and Kuro's lifeless body, to the raft behind Lami's speedboat. By starting the engine, the woman and her partner, Bappo, headed toward the nearest naval base after reviewing the marine map with Nami's help. Are they gaining fame? Zoro asked beside, watching the boat move away. He was a pirate hunter until recently. He knew that after Lami and Bappo caught a few pirates, their names would start to circulate, especially when Lami caught a pirate with a 15 million bounty like Buggy. It wouldn't take long for her to become quite famous in this sea. Are you afraid of losing your reputation so quickly? Kuina mocked beside. I doubt I have any reputation now. I'm a pirate with a 5 million bounty on my head. But I won't be surprised if the woman and the panda gain a great reputation just for delivering Buggy to the Marines. Now, with Kuro, a pirate who was dead on the records, that will attract a lot of attention to them, Zoro concluded with a smile. Whatever Lami's reputation is now or in the future, it will end once we enter the Grand Line. Now, forget about it, and today won't be a day off, let's train. Luffy announced, earning a smile from Yamato, Kuina, and Zoro. In contrast, Nami, Usopp, Shirahoshi, Megalo, and Chaochu shivered and lamented upon hearing those words. Their infernal training would begin soon. Meanwhile, the rescued couple watched patiently from the side. Most of the time, they showed compassion for the weaker members, witnessing Luffy's torture and ruthless attitude. What are you looking at like that? To the training area, move! Luffy shouted at them, and everyone ran to train. The captain would make them suffer even more if they made him wait. Yes, Captain! They shouted quickly. Some time later. Please help me! Luffy heard Nami scream, looking like a bug on the ground from so much suffering. She was the one suffering the most since those rigorous training began. Not even in Syrup Village had Luffy been so relentless, but he had the goal of strengthening her. Luffy sighed and picked her up in his arms like a princess, taking her to one of the cabins, where she would rest until she recovered to be able to help with the ship's navigation again. Upon returning to the deck, Luffy was approached by Usopp, who had spotted something in the sea. Captain, is that a rock? Can I shoot? He asked. No, there's a person in that location. Luffy replied with a smile, believing that meeting was predestined, like many others in the canonical work. A person, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked curiously, flying to his side. I only see a rock, and my haki doesn't reach the location, Yamato complained. Don't worry, I'm telling the truth. They seem trustworthy, let's help them since it looks like they went through a shipwreck. Luffy said, and Zoro took the helm in the indicated direction. Thus, the ship arrived alongside that rocky formation in the middle of the ocean. Sharky! Megalo was the first to inspect the sight, flying out of the ship. A flying shark! Luffy and the others heard an astonished voice as they spotted Megalo. Get out of here, monster! I won't let you eat me and my partner. The voice sounded indignant but also carried fear in its tone. Sharky Sharky! Megalo, scared by that phrase, began to squirm and fled back to the ship. He's scared. Are they not bad people? Shirahoshi hugged her friend, showing concern in her voice. You say that as if people could find it normal to see a shark wearing a t-shirt, flying out of the water, Kuina commented calmly, understanding the point of view. Anyway, let's help them, declared Luffy, and the ship advanced until the crew faced that strange voice. A marine ship? We're saved, said a man with sunglasses, while a second beside him was lying on the ground, looking quite debilitated. Wait! These aren't sailors! Pirates, the man exclaimed as soon as he noticed Luffy's look and smile, clearly denouncing that shirtless, tattooed man as a wrongdoer on a marine ship. So, do you want help? Luffy asked calmly, noticing the man's hesitation. You. Zoro arrived next to Luffy with a bored face, but when he saw who the man on the rock was next to the fallen companion, he shouted in astonishment. Aren't those pirates on a marine ship? Yusaku murmured, almost fainting beside the group, clearly not sailors. We fell into a trap, brother. Yahuni shouted in frustration. Wait, isn't that Zoro? Yusaku opened his eyes a little and said weakly. Brother Zoro. Zoro Aniki. Johnny, the bounty hunter, expressed joy upon seeing Zoro. Johnny, what the hell are you doing here? And what happened to Yusaku? Zoro inquired loudly. It didn't take long for them to be brought onto the boat. Observing the state of the man lying and muttering incomprehensible things, Yamato commented. He doesn't seem well. It's a shame Lami left not long ago, as a doctor, she could help, lamented the horned woman. Damn it, grumbled the man, apparently not caring that he was now among pirates. His focus was entirely on saving his partner. He's vitamin C deficient. Nami's voice reached the group. She was a bit weak and limping, but she was recovering from training. Then let's nurture him. Usopp, get some citrus fruits from the stock. Luffy ordered. Yes, Captain. Usopp ran to the stock. While Nami explained that his worst situation was exposure to the sun without the necessary nutrients, Usopp filled the man's mouth with lemon. It didn't take long for the man to get up, as if he had just woken up from a long sleep and not from the critical state he was in just 5 seconds ago. He woke up so fast. Nami exclaimed. Hi 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 hi. Hi 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 hi. As part of a ritual, they began to dance and sing strange words. Is he strange, said the woman named Marta, who spoke in an incomprehensible manner. True, dear, they are quite strange. Said her husband. They are weird, they say. Everyone exclaimed to the bizarre couple. He he he. How funny. Shirahoshi said laughing at the duo still dancing. A beautiful woman with a tail. They shouted, seeing the mermaid seriously for the first time, as she wasn't wearing a dress on the ship. Now that you noticed the mermaid. Zoro shouted in a comic way. Yahuni and Yusaku, as slow as always, Zoro complained about their reactions. Zoro, how do you know these guys? Usopp asked beside. We sailed together for a while, when I defeated them in a fight, they started following me, but I wasn't accepting disciples, so they joined me for a while to learn and hunt some pirates. They seem so weak. Yamato said calmly. Who are you calling weak? The two turned to Yamato and both protested. Anyway, brother Zoro, so it's true? You've become a pirate with a 5 million bounty? Johnny asked, he still couldn't believe the news that appeared to him a few days ago. What can I say, I had some problems with the Marines and recognized a man as my captain, as I aim to become the strongest swordsman in the world. Sorry, Zoro Baka, but I'm going to be the strongest swordsman in the world now. Kuina announced with conviction beside. Let's decide that in the future then. Zoro said, exposing a smile in the face of Kuina's challenge. He didn't underestimate her at all, even with her 11 years of delay. Anyway, why don't you tell your story and why you ended up in this sea? Luffy finally spoke, but before they could answer, Yusaku fell to the ground again, sick. Third-person POV. Somewhere at sea, East Blue. After Yusaku recovered, the group spent another night at sea, training and celebrating as they sailed. The bounty hunters ended up bonding with the group, especially due to their history with Zoro and their comical way of talking. It wasn't hard for everyone to get acquainted with them. Even Nami, who had to hit them a few times, ended up getting along with everyone in the end. Strangely, they stayed with Chaochu longer than anyone else on board. The next day, after a training session, Usopp caught Luffy's attention while on the mast with a spyglass. Captain, a marine ship is approaching. Usopp shouted. Turning his gaze in the indicated direction, Luffy spotted a ship similar in size to theirs, slowly approaching. The pirate captain couldn't help but smile, realizing they were close to the restaurant since this marine ship indicated it, and they hadn't spent much time at sea. Also, they were a bit early for the meeting with the lieutenant, scheduled to take place in front of the restaurant. It was a relief that Lamy had left yesterday, before they encountered the marine ship. Otherwise, they would have to abandon the plan to collect bounties, as it would be doomed to fail once they discovered Lamy's connection to the crew. Should we attack them? Yamato came to Luffy's side as the marine ship approached, and Luffy waited with crossed arms. No, let's wait to get a better look at these guys. They think we're marines and probably want to mess with us. Let's give them a surprise. Luffy said calmly. Is that okay? Usopp asked cautiously. We're not afraid of the marines, Usopp, we're just cautious while we can take some advantages, which is not the case right now. Luffy smiled. The only way to be cautious was while Lamy still had a chance to extract some money from the naval organization. Other than that, Luffy didn't care much about them. It's not like I hold a grudge against them, but if they come to attack us, we'll respond in kind. Luffy said confidently as they waited for the other ship to approach faster since theirs was slower now. Zoro and Kuina didn't care much and continued training without bothering about the incoming ship. As the marine ship advanced toward the Straw Hat crew, the scene on board was calm, despite different movements among the pirate crew. Zoro and Kuina, immersed in their training, remained focused, ignoring the arrival of the ship. Their movements were precise, a blade dance that denoted skill and confidence. On the other hand, Shirahoshi, Megalo, Chaochu, Nami, Usopp, and the couple watched with growing curiosity, as this would be their first encounter with the marines at sea. Johnny and Yusaku, fearful of being recognized as bounty hunters, chose the path of discretion, hiding in strategic locations to avoid being noticed. With a gentle creak, the marine ship finally reached the side of the pirate's vessel. A man with pink hair and a brass knuckle in his hand emerged on the deck, casting a challenging glance toward the crew. The anticipation reached its peak when several marines positioned themselves behind him, looking at the other ship with arrogant eyes, with several more behind them. I tried to contact you, but without success, he said calmly, paying no attention to the people in front of him. While explaining the difficulty of communicating with the Straw Hats, the Marine lieutenant focused on his report, oblivious to the presence of the pirates. His efforts to establish contact were futile, as Luffy had previously eliminated any traces of communication with Den Den Mushi after leaving Shell Town. Can I know which division you belong to? However, the lieutenant's attention shifted abruptly when his eyes scanned the pirate crew. In a moment of surprise, his expression went from calm to a comical shock upon realizing the stunning beauty of Shirahoshi and Yamato, two of the most beautiful women in the world. The exclamation about their beauty escaped his lips before he could restrain it. Wait a minute. What beautiful women! He exclaimed, his almost theatrical reaction catching the attention of the marines beside him, who were stunned by the sudden change of focus. Amid Luffy's ruffian-like aura, the pirate mantle proudly displayed the Jolly Roger with the straw hat, a clear and irrefutable identity as pirates. Wait! You're not marines! The marines beside him were stunned when they paid attention to the rest of the group in front of them. Amid Luffy's ruffian-like aura, the pirate mantle proudly displayed the Jolly Roger with the straw hat, a clear and irrefutable identity as pirates. Oh, now that I notice, wasn't it reported that we stole a marine ship? Why is everyone surprised about it when we meet them? Luffy asked casually, not caring about the others' reactions. Any problem here, dear? Luffy had his thoughts interrupted by a sweet and curious voice that emerged behind the marine man. It was a blonde woman in a red dress that elegantly embraced her curves, highlighting her stunning figure. Her beautiful face was adorned with golden hair that fell gracefully over her shoulders. The woman exuded a captivating presence, with curious eyes and a charming expression. Her red dress, in addition to enhancing her slender figure, gave her an irresistible elegance. Don't worry, my lady. I'm just going to deal with some thieves, and we'll be on our way to our restaurant and the meeting I promised you. The man said passionately, diverting attention to the woman and looking at Luffy with predatory eyes, he exclaimed with fury. Who are you, and how do you have a marine ship? The man shouted, completely changing his demeanor from a passionate gentleman to a ruthless marine upon realizing that Luffy and the others were on a stolen organization ship. As I said, we stole it a few days ago. It was quite easy to take this ship, by the way, Luffy mocked the man as if it were no big deal. Lieutenant Full Body. Here, I knew I recognized that straw hat somewhere, said a young marine, who ran to the pink-haired man and handed him some papers. Seeing the papers for a moment, the man looked with hawk eyes at Luffy and began to read aloud. Monkey D. Luffy, a pirate known as Straw Hat and captain of the Straw Hat crew, with a bounty of 10 million berries. Crimes: attacked a marine base 153, stationed in Shell City, taking the entire base hostage and cold-bloodedly killing its commander, Morgan, in the process. In addition to being a murderer, he hospitalized many marines and exploded a part of the base, causing terror in the hearts of all civilians in Shell City. Lastly, stole a marine ship, location, unknown. Warning, if spotted, report to Marineford headquarters immediately, avoid fighting if civilians are not in danger. The man read aloud with a mocking tone. Luffy was already surrounded by his comrades at this point, even Zoro and Kuina came to see with curiosity the commotion. No one had seen these detailed pieces of information in the newspaper, as it only mentioned that Luffy attacked the base and killed its commander. Moreover, Lamy could have this information as a bounty hunter, but she hastily left the marine base as soon as she handed over Buggy. Everyone in the crew was attentively listening to all his crimes, which made Luffy find it hilarious. Oh? Am I famous now, hi? Luffy teased while crossing his arms. 10 million isn't a very large amount, even in this sea. I'm not at the top, but they still want people to notify the headquarters about my location before attacking? This means that Granny pulled some strings to protect me and is coming here soon, Luffy reflected. I still think 10 million is too little. Yamato complained behind Luffy. How can 10 million be little? It's 10 million. Kuina, Nami, and Usopp exclaimed because, for them, who lived in the East Blue their whole lives, 10 million is an unbelievable amount, and only outlaws can have that on their heads. 10 million is nothing in the sea, Luffy couldn't help but comment. While the Straw Hats were arguing, Full Body picked up a second paper and began reading as he did with the first. Roronoa Zoro, pirate swordsman belonging to the Straw Hat crew, with a bounty of 5 million berries. Crimes: former bounty hunter, now a criminal after escaping from prison and justice, killing defenseless marines during the escape. Zoro, you're a dangerous criminal. Kuina complained to her old friend. Clearly, that's a lie. I didn't kill anyone in base 153. Even though I wanted to fight at the time, I ended up turning into a pack mule in the end. Zoro complained. Ha 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 ha. They painted you as a murderer there. Luffy laughed at his swordsman. You guys are wanted criminals by the law. The man, who held the rank of lieutenant, spoke again without reading the papers, pointing to the group. We are, so what? What do you intend to do about it? Luffy taunted, still with crossed arms. I, Lieutenant Full Body, will arrest you here and now. The man called Full Body declared. He's narcissistic, Usopp said with a grimace beside. He just wants to impress that woman there. Luffy said calmly, pointing to the woman. Shameless, Nami complained beside with a bored face. The woman was surprised by this, while Full Body himself gritted his teeth because they were analyzing him and commenting as if he were some kind of exotic animal, embarrassing him in front of the beautiful woman he had invited for a date at their next destination. Shut up, pirates! I'll sink you immediately! He shouted angrily. Luffy looked at this and smiled, and his attention turned to the beautiful lady. Hey, miss, can I know your name? Luffy asked calmly, earning a surprised look from the woman, while his companions raised their eyebrows at him, especially the women in the group. Caroline Juden, she answered a little surprised by the question. How about you come to my ship? Leave this marine and come here. I guarantee you much more adventure than a marine ship can provide, Luffy shamelessly flirted with the woman. He knew he had a natural effect on the female sex, so he wouldn't let this opportunity pass, especially to provoke the arrogant man from the marine. In whom are you hitting on and is invited to the ship as a prostitute? Yamato and Nami shouted, punching Luffy in the head from behind. but he didn't even feel the touch due to his powerful body. As if that would work. Do you think you're some kind of desired ideal lover at sea or something, Luffy baka? Kuina mocked with crossed arms and a vein appearing on her forehead. I don't know. Maybe if you invite me first for dinner. Caroline Juden looked at Luffy with an expression that conveyed surprise and enchantment. Her eyes, initially widened by the unexpected approach of the pirate captain, began to shine with a mix of disbelief and fascination. The blush on her cheeks became more pronounced, highlighting her shyness in the face of Luffy's bold flirtation. As Luffy's playful smile unfolded, an unmistakable warmth manifested in Caroline's eyes. She seemed captivated by the pirate's audacity, her lips forming a gentle smile as the initial tension gave way to an expression of curiosity and interest. The blonde woman, dressed in red, appeared unable to look away from Luffy, as if he had cast a charming spell on her. She's really falling for his flirt, he's really seducing her. Both his comrades and the marines all fell to the ground screaming, looking at the woman with incredulous eyes, as she clearly looked at Luffy with desire and shyness. Lieutenant Fullbody's face was quickly transformed by fury when he saw his woman falling for Luffy's blatant flirt. His eyes, which previously showed passionate affection, now burned with intense rage and indignation. Fullbody's furious expression stood out even more against his rigid posture and brass knuckles in hand, which now seemed ready to be employed not against the pirates but against the Straw Hat captain. His clenched lips indicated a mixture of frustration and displeasure as he found himself powerless in the face of Luffy's apparent seduction of his companion. While the rest of the crew, both pirates and marines, watched in astonishment, Fullbody became the epicenter of a storm of emotions. The scene revealed not only jealousy but also defiance and an intense desire for retaliation against the pirate who dared to flirt with his woman. Sink these criminals now! Fullbody shouted at the height of his anger, unable to endure another humiliation. Seeing the woman who was supposed to go on a date with him opening up like this for a rookie pirate he just met couldn't have made him more furious. The marines, motivated by Fullbody's fury and the need to defend the honor of the marines, acted swiftly. With determination evident on their faces, they moved in a coordinated manner, bringing with them an imposing cannon. The gleam of metal shone in the sunlight, highlighting the magnitude of the weapon about to be used against Luffy. The marines, lined up as if they were a single entity focused on a single goal, positioned the cannon with precision and firmness. While the eager fingers of the marines closed around the ropes that would trigger the shot, a tense silence hung in the air. The onlookers, both pirates and marines, watched with anticipation as the scene unfolded. Luffy, on the other hand, maintained his relaxed posture, with crossed arms and a confident smile on his face. His gaze, however, didn't express fear but rather a calm curiosity, as if he were eager for the action that would unfold. Seeing the marines pointing a cannon directly at him, Luffy was undeterred. "Step back," Luffy announced, waiting for the shot to come his way, while the crew, moving as a synchronized team, created a safe distance from Luffy. The instant the command "fire" echoed through the air, the cannon released its payload with an impressive boom, shooting the cannonball towards Luffy at a speed that defied human perception. Bang! The deafening sound was followed by a distinctive pop when the ball was launched, gaining speed towards the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. The imminent impact created a palpable tension in the air. Pop! However, to everyone's surprise, including the comrades themselves, the scene took an unexpectedly comedic turn. Luffy, with his confident smile, reached out and intercepted the cannonball as if it were a casual gesture. The ball, moving swiftly, came to a sudden stop as if it had hit an invisible wall. Luffy held the metal sphere with ease, displaying surprising control over the situation. The Straw Hat captain's casual gesture not only surprised his opponents but also elicited incredulous laughter among his own crew, witnessing another extraordinary display of Luffy's power. What? All the marines couldn't believe what they saw. Even Johnny and Yusaku fell to the ground in disbelief. Even after witnessing Luffy's training with his crew, they didn't think it was possible for a human to simply stop a cannonball with their bare hands. "Since you gave me this, maybe I should give it back with interest," Luffy announced with a smile that even sent shivers down Fullbody's spine. He realized he was facing someone he had underestimated. "What kind of monster are you?" he shouted. Luffy didn't answer. What he did was simple, he tossed the cannonball back at the marine ship. The cannonball, initially thrown into the air by Luffy with surprising ease, ascended with remarkable force. Onlookers watched it rise, waiting for what would happen next. Pop! In an instant, the atmosphere changed. The characteristic sound announced a dramatic transformation as the mass of the cannonball increased vertiginously, reaching colossal proportions. What was once a common metal sphere had now turned into a monstrous cannonball with a 9-meter diameter, its structure previously 30 centimeters, now 900 centimeters with 30 times more mass. The immense shadow cast by the cannonball covered the marine ship, obscuring the sunlight. The visual impact left marines and pirates bewildered, unable to fully comprehend the supernatural nature of the power Luffy possessed. The massive size of the resulting cannonball elicited exclamations of disbelief and fear among those present, as everyone tried to understand what had just happened. What in hell is this? Ah, look at the size of that cannonball. Where did that come from? We're going to die. The Marines screamed in desperation now. Luffy knew that it wasn't enough to destroy the ship yet, even with 9 meters, but he had an idea of how to do that with another command of his devil fruit. Moa Moa no Mi, gravity, apply 30 times. The cannonball ammunition with 9 meters, which was starting to fall in the middle of the ship, suddenly gained speed, falling with force before anyone could react. Cray-a-a-a-ok. Our ship. We're going to die. The ship didn't stand a chance, with the Marines only able to scream as everything around them cracked and sank, crushed by this colossal dark ball. Did you go too hard on them? Nami asked beside, still stunned by the scene. Like many others, the couple and the bounty hunters looked with comically wide eyes and mouths. It won't be fatal for them, but they'll have to swim for a long time until they reach the restaurant. Luffy smiled as all the wreckage of the marine ship spread across the sea. Excuse me, a new voice was heard among the crew, while everyone was busy watching the ship being destroyed. When everyone turned, they saw the beautiful blonde woman in a corner of their ship. How did she get in here? Everyone murmured. I wanted to know. Is your offer still valid? She said timidly, scratching her hands and looking at Luffy. What are you talking about, seducing on my Toki? I mean, my Luffy. Take this. Yamato appeared beside, punching the poor woman, who flew like a rocket to the broken marine ship. Everyone heard her screaming. You didn't have to go that hard, Yamato, Luffy commented a bit lost. He didn't know Yamato could be so jealous. Yamato crossed her arms and huffed, turning her face, refusing to look at Luffy. Sighing, he could only sigh and continue the journey, leaving the Marines and the woman behind. Come on, we have a restaurant to get to later today. Luffy announced, using his power to speed up his ship like never before, leaving the broken ship behind. Third-person POV. Baratai, East Blue. After resolving the situation with the marine ship, the crew continued on their journey, sighting the restaurant on the horizon some time later. As they approached, a sense of awe seized Luffy and his crew. The sea restaurant was a unique spectacle, and the sight of it enchanted everyone. The Baratai rose imposingly above the sea's waters, a splendid floating restaurant that defied imagination. Built on various interconnected platforms, the venue featured a unique architecture that blended the functionality of a ship with the elegance of a luxury establishment. Graceful towers rose above the waves, adorned with banners swaying in harmony with the sea breeze. Connected by suspended bridges, the platforms offered a breathtaking view of the vast ocean. Stone lions guarded the entrance, giving a majestic aura to the Baratai. The external structure reflected the fusion of maritime themes and refined details, providing an imposing and intriguing look. As they approached the restaurant, the Straw Hat crew was amazed by the grandeur of the Baratai. The nautical details and the majestic structure left Luffy and his companions in awe. The spacious platforms and large windows promised panoramic views of the ocean, while the legendary cuisine piqued everyone's curiosity. Amazing! The sea outside Wano is so fascinating. Thank you, Luffy, for freeing me from that old tyrant. Yamato expressed her gratitude to Luffy for freeing her from the shackles imposed by her father. It's truly extraordinary. Beyond the sky, there are so many peculiar and amazing things on the surface. Shirahoshi, also someone previously confined, marveled at the diversity of the world beyond her prison. This place is quite luxurious. Zoro commented, directing his admiration to the restaurant itself. I've never heard of this place, Kuina observed the restaurant with curiosity. And to think that such a place exists in this vast sea, Usopp expressed his surprise, making the most of it even after a few days of leaving Syrup Village. This place is highly renowned and certainly lives up to its reputation. Nami, with a knowledgeable tone, shared her observations about the location. Sharky. Megalo said if there are some seaweeds, he misses eating some that were served at my father's palace, Shirahoshi said. Doubtful, but we'll see soon, Luffy replied calmly. ARF. Let's go then, I know you'll enjoy the food, Chaochu. Luffy responded to the crew's watchdog's expectation. I heard that the place has powerful waiters who can kick out any troublemaker looking for trouble. Johnny said. Be careful, brother Luffy. Yusaku said next to his partner. We're not bullies, Zoro commented next to him, puffing. Kuina continued to steer the helm towards the location. The place even had a support for 6 large boats to dock and seemed to be a busy day, as all the spaces were occupied by tourist and commercial boats. So the ship didn't anchor but stopped at a conveniently accessible dock, and his crew laid down a plank for them to descend beside the restaurant in the open sea. Leading the way, Luffy walked off the ship onto the beach straight to the restaurant with everyone on the marine ship following him, but not before he made the ship shrink that besides needing to leave someone to take care of it, he didn't want to attract too much attention. The people in the group who hadn't witnessed his power and its possibilities were shocked when Luffy took the boat they were on until a moment ago and turned it into a miniature that fit in the palm of his hand with his ability. Climbing majestic stairs that seemed to lead to a gastronomic kingdom, Luffy opened the imposing doors of the Baratai. In doing so, he was met with a stunning scene, a huge hall capable of accommodating at least 200 people, far beyond what he had imagined. It was a spectacular and grand vision, in stark contrast to his previous experiences in the original world of the work. The restaurant was bustling, with about 15 zealous waiters working hard to serve the diverse clientele. Crossing the door's threshold, one by one, Luffy's crew members entered the place, capturing the attention of everyone present with their peculiar group of humans and animals. "What's that?" exclaimed someone, observing the mini megalo. Luffy had reduced its mass even further, to only 20 centimeters, a decrease of 100 times from its original size. He used his power to make Megalo less conspicuous, but still, the creature continued to intrigue those present. "Some kind of dog? Looks so strange, almost reminds me of a shark," people murmured, still debating about Megalo next to Chaochu. "Who are these people?" they questioned, curious and bewildered at the Straw Hat crew's triumphant entrance. "Pirates. Look behind that man's cloak, there's a Jolly Roger with a straw hat. I know who they are. Saw it in the newspaper. Monkey D. Luffy, the man who killed a marine commander and held an entire base stationed in Shell City hostage. The recently recognized pirate in East Blue with a bounty of 10 million. There's also the former bounty hunter by his side. He has another bounty of 5 million. Hey, he's clearly dangerous. I heard there's a new bounty hunter, and she's a powerful woman catching pirates above 10 million. Hope she takes down this scum too," a man spoke, referring to Lamy. Luffy raised an eyebrow hearing this, as they hadn't seen the newspaper yet. He hoped to have one soon to check the news about Lamy. But the captain is so handsome. Never seen a man so beautiful. Hey, he's a pirate, don't start finding someone like that attractive. Look, you're on a date with me, why are you falling for a scoundrel? Someone free this pirate, waiters. Doubt you can make her look at you, see the women surrounding him, they're by far the most beautiful I've ever seen. Didn't know women could be so beautiful. They're goddesses on earth. Damn scum, how does he manage to have that kind of woman by his side? They can even be more beautiful than the lovely waitress here. One has horns, and the other has a strange waist, but they're more beautiful than I've ever seen." While Luffy listened to the murmurs with his enhanced ears thanks to Ifrit, he didn't care much about this kind of conversation. His attention was focused on the man approaching, ready to help the crew enjoy the place. "How may I assist you?" said a waiter who approached the group. He exuded a bit of fear with the crew's presence but disguised it very well. Like all the waiters, he appeared stern and fierce on the outside. They might not close the doors to outlaws, but they acted that way with any pirate group that passed through those doors. "Well, a table for 13 would be a good start," Luffy spoke mockingly. He could understand and expect them to act this way, but that didn't stop him from responding in kind to this man. "I see you're good with the pirate tongue, come with me. Are the animals included too?" the waiter said in the same tone, leading us to one of the empty tables. "And why wouldn't they be?" Luffy retorted, earning a new stern look. The man ignored it and continued his work. "Why do you have to be like this?" Nami asked angrily. She started to blend in more with the crew now and took on more of the personality that Luffy remembered from the original work, which made him quite happy with this Nami since he laughed many times with her. "I'm just answering your questions, simple as that." Luffy shrugged. Getting a seat under the gaze of all the customers, with some looking indifferent and many dissatisfied with their presence, they took a large table by a window overlooking the sea. "Can you get a newspaper for our people?" Luffy calmly asked the waiter. "Sure," he responded still stern. "Is that marine guy okay?" Shirahoshi asked when she sat in her place, hiding her tail. She moved strangely, with her body seeming out of place due to the air bubble at her waist, but at least she wasn't drawing attention as a mermaid. "Who knows? Maybe he'll learn not to be so arrogant next time," Luffy said calmly. While everyone picked up the menus on the table, the man who led them away stepped back to give them time to decide what to order and get the newspaper requested by Luffy. "So, Luffy, you said you had someone here to recruit, who is it?" Usopp suddenly asked curiously. "Haven't seen them yet, but I hope they show up soon, whether it's a he or she," Luffy said, chin in hand, gazing thoughtfully at the ocean on the horizon. "Wait, you don't even know if it's a man or a woman?" Kuina asked, raising an eyebrow at that. "I really don't know, but I'll find out soon." This statement left not only Kuina but also Nami, Zoro, and Usopp stunned. "Your newspaper," the man said, handing over the newspaper quite rudely. "Will you be ordering anything?" He spoke again. Luffy, annoyed by this attitude, spoke up. "Not now, but Megalo and Chaochu, place your orders." "Sharky." "Oh. Oh. You heard, you can jot that down. Luffy smiled at the man. He gritted his teeth, being made a fool of by this man with the straw hat. He simply turned and walked away from the table, ignoring everyone. Oh? Chao Chu asked, confused by the waiter's reaction. Don't worry, another waiter will come soon. Luffy tried to cheer up the sad dog. Why do you have to act like this? Kuina said while the others remained silent. Luffy seemed to want to annoy this waiter. I acted like this because I'll be classified by these staff as an arrogant customer, so they must have this person serve us, Luffy stated the obvious. Sanji would be called to attend to them since he must be the best waiter here, and it was necessary to deal with the more troublesome customers. Now let's check the newspaper. Nami ignored this and picked up the paper on the table. Some grand line information, like a meeting of the Shishibukai at the headquarters. Let's see information in the blues, Nami said flipping through the pages. West blue, north blue, here, east blue, Nami said looking at the information. There's information about Luffy, as we already saw at Kaya's mansion. Information about Lami. Nami said and continued. Recently, while East Blue loses Zoro, a woman has proclaimed herself the newest bounty hunter. Starting her fame, she captured Buggy, the clown, a pirate with a bounty of 15 million. Her power seems to be even better than that, so there seem to be significant changes in the weaker sea, as this bounty hunter promises to hunt down all the major pirates of the sea. Nami read. They seem to be making a big deal about her, Kuina said solemnly. So, Lami is from your crew? Johnny asked amazed. No need to be surprised, Luffy commented. Suddenly, Luffy heard footsteps approaching the table. He knew it wasn't the previous waiter, and the steps were delicate enough to be a woman's. So, you're not a man, Luffy murmured as he turned to look at the woman who stopped in front of his table. She was called as usual when there's a troublesome group, the waiters ask her to deal with them. As much as she draws attention for her beauty, she always manages to be deadly and beat up all the idiots. While she was resting and smoking a cigarette, Bob came to the kitchen a few minutes later, complaining that there was an arrogant pirate in the restaurant. Since she owed him a favor, she agreed to come to the table, surrounded by 13 beings, many of whom were strange, including animals. When she stopped in front of everyone, who had already turned to look at her, she noticed the gaze of the man who seemed to be the leader. Luffy looked at that woman with genuine surprise in his eyes. She was a tall, slender, elegant woman, with long pinkish short hair that falls in waves. Her eyes are blue and expressive, complementing her beautiful and refined face. She is usually seen wearing a tight restaurant outfit that highlights her figure. Luffy looked for her missing tattoos on her thighs in the next moment, but saw only smooth skin there. Her presence is marked by an aura of sophistication, and she is known for her calm and calculating behavior. His surprised look didn't go unnoticed by the woman, and she returned a look wondering if he knew her. Someone choked at the table, observing the silence that stretched between the waitress's gaze and Luffy's. His crew paid attention when Luffy said they would call the person he wanted to recruit, so they were curious if it was really this woman. Do you know me? The woman spoke a bit hesitantly, after a moment of silence, as she seemed a bit nervous for the first time, disliking the hawk-eyed and surprised gaze of the man. The surprised expression in Luffy's eyes didn't go unnoticed by the woman, who began to wonder if he knew her past. Does he know my past? That was her first question, accompanied by a look full of apprehension. And no, no. Luffy stammered in his response, an unusual reaction for the captain who normally expresses himself with confidence. The captain's intriguing behavior caused everyone at the table to raise their eyebrows, surprised by this unprecedented reaction. I think it's okay, so, can I take your orders? She tried to dissipate the tension, glancing at Luffy, who still stared at her intensely. Seeing that Luffy remained silent, the crew members began placing their orders from the menu, with Shirahoshi helping Megalo and Chaochu choose their meals. And you, what can I do for you? She spoke cautiously, feeling strange in front of this man. He was very attractive to her, but the gaze that studied her all the time made her uncomfortable, as if he knew all her secrets. It wasn't the lustful look she was used to receiving from idiots. Meat, lots of meat, was his simple response, and she quickly noted it down to leave. Seeing her walk away, Luffy noticed that everyone was looking at him strangely, especially Yamato and Nami. However, realizing that the waitress was moving away, he moved quickly, like a bullet. In the next second, he stopped her in the middle of the restaurant, holding her hand. She felt the touch and suddenly turned around angrily, ready to kick whoever held her so rudely. Her body spun quickly, gaining momentum, and she kicked the person who held her. The noise caught everyone's attention when the waitress was still in the air, with the pen stuck in the man's head. Surprisingly, the man showed no signs of pain or discomfort from the impact of the kick. He simply looked embarrassed while his foot, with a high heel, still pressed gently against his cheek. Boom! The noise echoed, capturing everyone's attention in the restaurant. The waitress still hovered in the air with the pen stuck in the man's head. Surprisingly, the man showed no signs of pain or discomfort from the impact of the kick. He simply looked embarrassed while his foot, still with a high heel, pressed gently against his cheek. Sorry about that, but I couldn't help but ask when I saw you, he spoke awkwardly, leaving the woman even more stunned when she finally landed on the ground. His arm didn't disconnect from the man's hand, and many waiters watched the scene angrily. They were friends with the woman and always protected her from men who tried something. However, she dealt with all the idiots alone, needing only a few kicks to knock out any smart aleck. This was the first time a man had approached her without her being able to react, leaving her intrigued. Especially because he took her kick as if it were a child's play, showing surprising indifference. What do you want? She asked cautiously, trying to pull her hand away. I want you to join my crew. He finally declared, creating a silence that spread throughout the place. Employees, customers, and even Luffy's acquaintances were stunned by the revelation. What? The pink-haired woman with a snail-shaped eyebrow screamed in astonishment, echoing through the restaurant and increasing the commotion among those present. Author's notes. Asterisk for me, women with supreme beauty in One Piece are, first of all, young Big Mom, then Yamato, Hancock, and Shirahoshi, so they will always be on a level beyond any other. Of course, then comes Nico Robin, Nami, and Vivi. Despite all the women in this world, I've always liked Nico Robin the most. Asterisk sometimes I will use the sense of smell to describe some situations because Luffy has a mythical Zoan devil fruit, so it makes sense for him to use some benefits of the animal. Asterisk the fight with Mihawk won't change much for Zoro, but how will Luffy and Yamato react to it, being the two strongest? Will Luffy stay quiet while the world's greatest swordsman leaves, or will he fight with Yamato by his side using his mythical Zoan? Third-person POV. Baratai, East Blue. I want you to join my crew. He finally said, creating total silence in the place. Everyone, from the staff to Luffy's acquaintances and customers, was stunned by the revelation. Wait. The pink-haired woman with snail-like eyebrows shouted in astonishment, echoing the small commotion throughout the restaurant. I can't believe the person I'd encounter in this place was neither Sanji nor a female version of him, but his own sister. Luffy smiled, looking at the pink-haired woman. He acted so weird because he was shocked and couldn't let this woman go, so he went straight to the point. What are you talking about, so suddenly? The woman shouted with a comical face at Luffy. She's even more comical than in the anime, her story is different from the original, so I believe her personality is more like Sanji's, since her story should be the same as his. Although she doesn't seem like a pervert, that's good. Luffy reflected as he analyzed the woman in front of him. Sorry for it being so sudden, but I've already decided. I want you on my crew, and I won't change my mind. Luffy smiled confidently. How do you ask such a thing? No, you're randomly stating it as if I don't have a choice. She shouted again, with a comical face. As I said, sorry for it being so sudden, but I've already decided, you're joining my pirate crew. Luffy spoke, while everyone was stunned by his words, as only Luffy and the waitress could be heard throughout the entire place. Don't decide that for others. She shouted back and continued with an angry tone, wanting to kick Luffy. And no, I'm not joining your pirate crew. She said firmly. It doesn't matter, I've already decided. I already consider you part of the group. Luffy crossed his arms with a confident smile. He really didn't want to force anyone to join the group, but he was sure this woman would be like the original Sanji, he just had to insist enough to make her leave this restaurant, so he acted more like the original Luffy here. No. No matter what, I won't accept your no. I refuse. I refuse to accept your refusal. What kind of logic is this? Prepare our food, for it will be your last day working here. Ha. Luffy smiled and laughed at the end good-naturedly. He finally found his cook, and a great beauty on top of that. I already said, no. The woman had a vein on her forehead as she shouted. This time, she was irritated by this strong, tattooed man who never removed that arrogant and annoying smile. Without holding back, the woman spun her body once again, while her hand was still being held, she gave another kick to his head. Boom. The sound of the impact was heard throughout the restaurant, but it didn't surprise anyone with any surprise, as the commotion had already caught the attention of the entire place while Luffy said he already considered this woman part of the crew. Ow! You have a powerful kick there. Great, I'll take you. Luffy smiled, with the delicate leg stuck next to his face, unfazed. Contrary to what most expected, Luffy's neck didn't even move with the woman's kick. He seemed totally oblivious to the fact that he had just received this blow, as his smile didn't waver a millimeter. What the hell are you? The woman shouted amazed. Her kick was always powerful, no matter what she kicked, but now there was a monster in front of her who didn't care about receiving her blows. Me? I'm your captain, didn't I mention? Luffy joked, smiling at her. I'm not a member of your crew, why do you insist on this? She spoke dejectedly, tired of the strange man's persistence. While the two conversed in the middle of the restaurant, the Straw Hat crew couldn't be more stunned by the scene. Luffy really is relentless, Usopp commented at the table, observing the situation. But this woman seems pretty hard to convince to join the crew, Zoro commented beside him. Calm down, Yamato. You're breaking the table. Kuina shouted at an enraged Yamato, as she cracked the table with her grip, glaring at Luffy. I doubt he can convince this woman. Clearly, she doesn't like how Luffy is approaching her. Nami complained beside. Ouch. Sharky. Chaozu-sama said Luffy-sama should offer her some pedigree. Shirahoshi innocently said, making everyone face-palm. That's dog food. Nami responded, frustrated. Brother Luffy is so cool. Yohani and Yusaku exclaimed in unison, admiring Luffy's persistence in the situation. Skorkaidoso syz isa najatsugan abritzos, said the woman named Yundini. It's true, my love, the love among the young ones is quite active. This young man already has so many women and is starting life, ho 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 ho. Kirti, the man, replied with a laugh, continuing their conversation. He reminds me of my youth. I was so popular with women, he said nostalgically. O Kessa, Sej Omegan Ao Droza Amagon contacts Lita Thesabrar, Isi Ao Sure Isles, Kesrio Syt Scori Nike Redan Ao, I'll Alvi Shy. She said simply. Don't talk like that. After I met you, I only had eyes for you and no one else. He defended himself. Who's talking about lovers? Yamato, Nami, and Kuina shouted at the same time, dissatisfied with how the man spoke about Luffy and other women. Are all these women jealous? Usopp cautiously asked beside. And shy, Zoro pointed to the mermaid at one end of the table. Shirahoshi had a deep blush on her face in her corner after these words, unable to lift her face as she fidgeted with her hair shyly. I have to ask my father for permission before having Luffy-sama as my husband, she said timidly. Don't say such things like that. Nami shouted at her. Now, the scene with Luffy and the pink-haired woman in the middle of the restaurant. Luffy looked at her and spoke with an apologetic tone. Sorry, that was uncouth of me. First of all, may I know your name? Luffy spoke calmly now, releasing his hand, which had been stuck to the woman's arm until then. The woman looked at him and spoke, crossing her arms, as Luffy released his hand. It's impolite to ask for a name without introducing yourself first. She said, raising an eyebrow. Luffy opened an even bigger smile and spoke so naturally that it seemed like he had repeated this phrase 10,000 times. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will rule the seas, and you? I am Reiju, just Reiju, nice to meet you. Wait, rule the seas? You seem strong, but that doesn't seem possible. She said, looking at Luffy like a fool. I might not do it if I didn't have a cook since I'll need to eat a lot while sailing and conquering stuff. But don't worry, now I have you. Luffy would try to mess with her at any possible opportunity now. Huh? I already said no. She insisted angrily. Luffy would try to provoke her even more, but a thunderous voice interrupted their conversation. What's happening here? The voice roared from the kitchen entrance, and a man with a big hat and a peg leg appeared in both of their views. Owner-san. A man is trying to steal Miss Reiju. Do something. One of the waiters shouted quickly upon seeing the owner of the place. Is that true? The man referred to as the owner, Zeph, looked at Luffy in front of Reiju and scratched his chin, thinking of something. You can take this stinky brat if you want, I'll give you a discount. No, I'll even pay for your lunch. Everyone, whether waiter, customers, the crew, or even Luffy and Reiju, all fell to the floor stunned by this. How can you speak like that, old man? Reiju shouted angrily. Sir, he can't take Miss Reiju. Stop this, my lord. Shut your mouths and get back to work. Zeph roared at them to shut up. And you, Reiju, you stinky brat, if you want to leave with this man, finish your workday first. He said and went back towards the kitchen without waiting for her response. Who said I'm leaving? Reiju was furious with Zeph's suggestion. Luffy, finding the situation amusing, laughed without any embarrassment in front of his future cook, ha 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 ha. Reiju, now more irritated, retorted as she crossed her arms, and you? Don't find this funny? Luffy, still laughing, teased, I just wanted a cook, didn't expect such an entertaining show. A stunned waiter, muttering to himself, these pirates are crazier than usual today. Zeph from the kitchen shouted back, and you, pirate, if you make more mess, you'll have to clean everything up afterward. Luffy, with a mischievous smile, replied, all right, old man, I'll behave, for now. Customers in the restaurant, observing the chaos, exchanged surprised glances. Well, Luffy, nice meeting you, but I'm taking your table's order to the kitchen, and I'm not joining your pirate crew. Goodbye. Reiju said, not giving Luffy a chance to react, and quickly walked away. With nothing else to do but watch the waitress's back, Luffy returned to his companions, who stared at him like hawks, especially the women. What the hell was that? Nami shouted at him as soon as he sat at the table. Ha ha ha, I was recruiting our cook. Luffy said, smiling, and noticed some odd behaviors. Hey, why is Shirahoshi acting like that? Luffy asked curiously. The mermaid in question was all red, unable to look at him, as she placed both hands on each cheek and turned her face as if she were thinking of something embarrassing, making a rather cute expression, in Luffy's opinion. Nothing you need to know. Kuina said angrily. Is that how you invite someone? Yohani and his partner, Yusaku, asked Luffy as if they were talking to their idol. Of course that's not how you do it. Usopp shouted, giving 2 punches to the men. Anyway, she'll be coming to the ship soon, I have no doubt about that. The captain said with a smile on his face. She didn't seem to want that, Zoro said calmly. Don't worry, before they even realize it, she'll already be sailing with us. Luffy insisted confidently. It didn't take long for the food to arrive at the table, brought by other waiters who looked grumpy at Luffy, trying to snatch the beauty of the restaurant from them until recently. This is really good. Shirahoshi exclaimed, trying new flavors. Ouch. Indeed, it's great food. Why do you only eat raw salmon? Kuina shouted at Yamato. Because it's my favorite food. She said confidently. Favorite food? Or did she read that in Odin's diary? Luffy thought as he watched Kaido's daughter devour all those fish. While they ate, making quite a noise for almost an hour, an unexpected event occurred. Boom! The restaurant door swung open, and Full Body appeared soaked and injured through the doors. His gaze swept everyone in the restaurant, but his expression intensified when he looked at a certain table in a corner. You! He shouted upon seeing the group that destroyed his ship. He came here again. Usopp said. Hearing this, Full Body could only clench his fists even harder. I'll destroy you, I swear, as soon as I get in touch with my superiors. Ouch. While making a threat filled with hatred towards the crew, a shadow appeared behind him, giving no time to react, and the marine was kicked aside, falling unconscious. This startled almost everyone in the restaurant, well, almost everyone. The shadow revealed itself as it began to enter the place, showing to be an injured pirate. Him? Wait, I forgot he was inside Full Body's ship. Ha 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 ha. Luffy remembered Jin from canonical events and couldn't help but burst into laughter. What are you laughing at? Ha 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 ha. I forgot about this guy, but I can't help but laugh, not when I remember throwing that cannonball when he was inside the ship, imagine him being crushed by a crane ball with increased gravity pressure. Ha 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 ha. Luffy began to laugh at the man's misfortune. The man didn't seem to appreciate the mockery while being the target of laughter, looking at this man who laughed at him with hatred. However, he couldn't do much, as he was all battered and weak after days without proper food. As if he couldn't feel more hatred, even without knowing what really happened, he was in his cell, trying to conserve his strength. Suddenly, the ceiling began to crack, frightening him immensely. When the ceiling finally gave way, he saw a giant, dark ball with several hundred kilos falling on him. He narrowly escaped not only being hit by a bullet falling from the ceiling but almost drowned inside his cell. His luck was that the impact broke the bars that held him, allowing him to swim back to the surface, where the Marines had to bring him to the restaurant without handcuffs. Third-person POV. Baratai, East Blue. He's Jin, from the Dawn Krieg Pirates. A customer shouted in amazement, echoing the surprise throughout the establishment. The most powerful pirate group in East Blue. Another voice spoke with evident fear, creating a wave of apprehension among those present. Ha 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 ha. Luffy, who was still laughing at Jin's situation, completely ignored the common customers' despair around him, receiving strange looks from everyone. Hey, this guy is crazy. He may be a 10 million pirate, but he's messing with one of Dawn Krieg's main members. He's asking for death. Ha 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 ha. I couldn't help but find this man's situation funny. Luffy said to his companions, indifferent to the comments coming from other parts. You seem to be in a good mood, Zoro couldn't help but comment on the side, watching the confusion unfold. Stop laughing like that, you're attracting too much attention. Nami yelled at Luffy. If Dawn Krieg hunts us down, won't we be in trouble? Usopp asked a bit cautiously, voicing his concerns. Jin, not liking any of this, ignored it for now and walked to an empty table, sitting down and waiting for service. Silence fell over the place once again, at least for the customers, while Luffy squeezed the last laughs out of his throat. A waiter with a funny expression approached the solitary Jin, a waiter Luffy had not seen before. When he reached the man from Dawn Krieg, the waiter seemed like a terrible actor, displaying a forced smile and scratching his hands while saying, "Dear customer, how may I assist you?" The clearly weak performance was quite funny in Luffy's opinion. Food, just food, and a lot of it. Jin said desperately. Sure, but may I ask beforehand if you have money to pay? The waiter said, closing his eyes with his smile more forced than usual. Will a bullet do? Jin simply spoke, pointing a gun at the waiter's head. So, you don't have a penny, do you? The man asked, maintaining that strange smile. Crack. Before Jin could react, the waiter clasped his hands and connected the pirate to the ground. Jin didn't even realize when he was hit, lying there like a kicked dog. OWWW. The crowd found this surprising. Patty, you broke a chair, I'm deducting it from your salary. Zeph shouted from the kitchen entrance, coming out as soon as he heard another commotion. That strength. Kuina found it surprising. If you don't pay, you're not a customer. Patty said, crossing his arms in front of the man on the ground with a fierce expression, much different from what he had until then. Jin was stunned, his stomach growling at this moment, showing how weak he was to react. That's right, waiter. You got him there. While customers and waiters celebrated, Luffy noticed Reijo once again, next to the owner, simply turning around to the kitchen when Patty grabbed Jin and dragged him through the restaurant. The waiter Patty simply threw Jin out of the boat. That was harsh, Nami murmured. Is this pirate really dangerous, Luffy-sama? Shirahoshi asked, showing her concern for the unusual event. No, just an ant in this sea, all pirates are weak here, Luffy simply spoke, his voice echoing through the relaxed atmosphere of the restaurant. His eyes observed the movement around, while his mind seemed to wander in thoughts. Meanwhile, Luffy couldn't help but notice Reijo once again leaving the kitchen, balancing a plate full of food toward the restaurant's door. So, you behave like Sanji in the end. Luffy thought, making a connection between the mysterious cook and the former crew member. While everyone returned to enjoying the delicious food, he saw the waitress and cook return to the kitchen with the empty plate. Without worrying about it, Luffy redirected his attention to his companions, ignoring the momentary commotion. And what do we do now? I'm so full. Yamato spoke, patting her slightly swollen belly directly. Can't you behave like a woman at least? Nami yelled, expressing her frustration with Yamato's carefree attitude. What do you mean? I'm a man. She said clearly, provoking strange looks from everyone around. Then why are you jealous of Luffy? Kuina asked in amazement. Because he's my woman. Yamato said confidently, revealing her momentary drunkenness. Wow, I regret approaching her like this is getting confusing and out of control, Luffy exclaimed internally, while everyone around slapped their foreheads, perplexed by Yamato's unexpected declaration. Forget about her, she's always like this. During our adventures, she'll understand she's a beautiful and delicate lady, Luffy broke the silence, prompting a pout from Yamato. But before Yamato could respond, Luffy changed the subject. Anyway, let's stay here for now. Interesting things are about to happen soon. Luffy said with a mysterious smile. Interesting things? Zoro asked, raising an eyebrow. Oh? Ha 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 ha, it's going to be quite interesting, especially for you and Kuina. Luffy said, maintaining the same enigmatic smile. Kuina found it curious but didn't inquire further, trusting Luffy's words. Luffy and his crew spent the next 2 hours in the restaurant, enjoying good food and drink. The atmosphere was lively and noisy, with laughter and conversations filling the air. While the crew ordered more drinks and had fun, the restaurant returned to a relaxed atmosphere. During this time, Luffy noticed that his cook, Reijo, didn't appear in the area anymore. She seemed to have withdrawn to the kitchen or some other unknown place. Luffy didn't pay much attention to it, as he was busy having fun with his companions. Full Body, on the other hand, managed to arrange a ride for himself, the severely injured woman, and his subordinates using a commercial ship that would take them to a nearby naval base. The transition to the ride went without major incidents, and soon, the group was on their way to their next destination. Back in the restaurant, Luffy and his crew formed a lively and noisy group at the table. Customers and some waiters seemed to dislike the commotion, but no one dared to disturb the group, knowing that all orders had been duly paid. The table remained a stronghold of laughter and conversation, standing out amid the rest of the restaurant. As time passed, Luffy observed the surroundings, eagerly anticipating the next twists and surprises that awaited him. It's a pity, in Luffy's opinion, that Reijo didn't appear at the table again, otherwise, he would have teased her a bit more. As predicted by the captain, after some time, a colossal shadow projected over the restaurant, obscuring the light coming through the windows. Before anyone could react, the entrance door burst open with a bang. Surprise was plastered on everyone's faces as Jin entered, carrying a visibly injured and exhausted Don Krieg. Don Krieg's armor was visibly worn and damaged, indicating a long journey or possible recent confrontations. Its original metallic sheen was obscured by scratches and stains, revealing signs of previous battles. Wood fragments and traces of smoke adorned the surface of the armor, suggesting that its wearer had faced considerable challenges. Don Krieg's physical state also corresponded to the condition of his armor. His countenance showed marks of exhaustion, with drops of sweat and dust mixed. The expression on his face indicated not only physical fatigue but also a certain dose of despair and need. While Jin carried him into the restaurant, Don Krieg's clothes were torn and disheveled, revealing wounds and bruises on his flesh. His clothes, which in previous times possessed a pirate grandeur, were now devoid of their former splendor, displaying signs of a difficult and challenging journey. The immediate reaction of someone echoed through the environment, "What? It's Don Krieg!" Everyone's attention turned outside, where they were met with an impressive sight. Beside the restaurant stood an imposing pirate ship, truly a battleship that commanded respect solely through its imposing presence. "Look out the window! There's a pirate battleship next to the restaurant," another voice exclaimed, further increasing the general perplexity in the face of the magnitude of the pirate vessel. "They're the Don Krieg pirates! Run!" Everyone crowded around the window to see the enormous pirate boat, whose size overshadowed all other boats in the dock. "Please! Help us!" Jin shouted next to his captain, desperate, before anyone else could react. "Of course not!" Paddy shouted, crossing his arms as if Jin were a fool. "Please, help me! I promise to leave." Right after, Don Krieg seemed so pitiful and weak, his words came out in a pitiable whisper. "Ha ha 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 ha! So, this is the strongest pirate in East Blue? How pathetic!" Paddy mocked again, looking at the man in front of him, whose appearance didn't match at all with the wanted poster or news in the newspapers. "Please," he continued to speak weakly, oblivious to the mockery around him. "Please, help! He's going to die of hunger, he hasn't eaten in days." Jin shouted as people turned their faces, trying to ignore him. What hypocrisy, Luffy thought, considering that this same pirate, starving to death, must have taken thousands of lives, people who were in a more lamentable state than him. Now, he acts like a desperate dog begging for help? Luffy didn't have to wait long for Reiju, the beautiful waitress, to come out of the kitchen with a plate of food while smoking a cigarette, not caring about everyone around. She brought the plate in front of the pirate, patiently waiting for him to start eating, under the stunned gaze of everyone. "Why are you doing this, Reiju?" Paddy shouted at his colleague. "We shouldn't let anyone go hungry," she replied calmly, while the pirate, Don Krieg, wasted no time and devoured the plate in front of him, not caring about anything else. Everyone commented on how this was a bad idea, while the beautiful woman patiently waited for the pirate to finish his meal. As soon as he put the last spoonful of the plate into his mouth, before Reiju could react, Don Krieg stood up and punched the woman who fed him, leaving everyone stunned. Luffy watched the woman fall backward. He didn't help her because he wanted to see her abilities, but she seemed to be on the same level as Sanji. Jin, seeing this, demanded to know the reason for the attack on Reiju, the only person who took the initiative to feed them, resulting in a strong blow to his arm from the captain himself. The man didn't seem to care about his subordinates' questioning. He glared fiercely at everyone present, making his demands. "I want all the food you have. For all my men over there." He pointed to the ship. This left everyone startled, and a crowd of customers began to run to escape on their ships in the docks. "They're bad people. Shouldn't we run too?" Princess Shirahoshi couldn't help but cry in fear. Why? The salmon is so good," Yamato said, stuffing a fish into her mouth without paying attention to the commotion. "How can you be oblivious to what's happening around you?" Usopp grimaced as he shouted at Yamato. "Ha ha ha! Don't worry, we have a new guest coming by sea, and I really want to see that." Luffy spoke excitedly, eager to meet Mihawk for the first time. "Take this." Paddy came out with some kind of bazooka, something Luffy didn't imagine seeing in this world, and shot Krieg point blank. Boom! The explosion raised smoke as it subsided, but Don Krieg seemed unfazed by the attack. "What?" Everyone expressed fear at this moment, seeing that things were getting very bad for them. "Do as I say, give me all the food to feed my crew, otherwise, I will destroy this restaurant," he exclaimed like a madman and continued announcing his plans. "I intend to return to the Grand Line and prove that I am the strongest man in the world," he declared. Reiju got up calmly, a bloodline on her forehead, but she didn't seem bothered by the injury. Luffy wondered what she would do, and when she headed to the kitchen with the displeasure of her men, shouting at her for feeding their enemy, a hand caught her and stopped her from continuing to walk. "Hey, why is my cook going to waste food on a dead man?" Luffy casually asked, ignoring the imminent danger.